Chapter 6:16. Shriek. Qinghuan angrily rebuked and directly rained down hailstones, smashing the classic's reverence house's west wing into smithereens. Only then did it contentedly spread its wings and chase after its little master with a whoosh. When Nanny Zhang heard the commotion outside gradually dwindle, she finally sighed in relief. She raised her embroidered handkerchief to wipe her sweat before hastily instructing the junior royal maid beside her to go investigate. When Jiayu Lu and Nanny Zhang returned, they heard that the entire west wing had been smashed to smithereens without a single intact brick or tile to be seen. The two of them looked at each other in bewilderment, completely at a loss for words. Arbor carried Jiayu Huang in one hand and that level 12 mystic cultivator in the other as he made a beeline for Sephora Flower Palace. There were actually 7 to 8 junior royal maids guarding Sephora Flower Palace's entrance, and the posture of a noble consort was quite proper. How could Arbor pay attention to them? He directly leaped over the wall with the person in hand. Who dares to trespass into Sephora Flower Palace? A burst of mystic energy directly shot up from the ground towards her. Ha! Arbor sneered. With a flick of his sleeve, he swept this mystic energy away. With a boom, it slammed into a stone stool in the small garden, immediately blasting a small and exquisite stone stool into smithereens. The expression of the royal maid who attacked turned apprehensive, and her entire body involuntarily shuddered. Mammy Su had just helped Consort Jing lie down when Consort Jing knitted her brows and shouted, "Who's making a ruckus outside?" Bang! A loud noise rang out. The 4 doors of Sephora Flower Palace's bedchamber were simultaneously smashed open by an enormous burst of mystic energy, turning into piles of rotten wood that fell to the ground in disarray. Consort Zhang's eyes widened as she abruptly threw off the cotton blanket covering her body. Just as she ran barefoot off the bed, she was met with a gust of cold air. "You! Impudent!" Consort Zhang's entire body trembled as she stared wide-eyed at the young lady striding over. The young lady's ice-cold appearance was like a jade statue carved in this snowy night, without the slightest hint of a smile on her face. Bam! How could Xiao Mu care about noble Consort Zhang's hooting? She went up and directly kicked her backwards. Consort Zhang was caught off guard. Her hair was disheveled as she was kicked to the side of the bed. She stumbled and missed a step. She sprained her ankle and almost fell to the ground. With great difficulty, she reached out to hold the edge of the bed and bent over. Her pretty face was flushed with anger and her eyes were filled with rage. It was as if blood was about to drip out. "Crown Prince Consort, you are too daring and presumptuous." Noble Consort Jing shouted furiously, her entire body trembling non-stop from her fury. Like a protective little beast, Xiao Mu jumped in front of noble Consort Jing with a whoosh. Her icy lips tugged up as she scoffed, "You think one kick is too much? Then, can you handle what's coming next?" Slap! A heavy slap landed on Consort Zhang's cheek. Consort Jing only felt pain on her face. It took her a while to realize that she had been slapped by the crown princess. Ah! A mere crown princess. How dare she? How dare she? Someone come quickly. Consort Jing was completely mad with anger. Her long hair was disheveled and draped over her face. Veins popped out on her forehead like a malicious spirit. "Take her down. Take this slut down. Oh! I'm going to put this slut to death by 1,000 cuts, then kill all 9 generations of her family." Ah! Consort Jing was going crazy. She was completely driven mad by Arbor. She had commanded the entire harem for so many years and had always been doted on by the great king. Who dared to treat her like this? She was kicked and slapped. Ah! She was Consort Zhang. Chapter 617. Yoonhee wants to put our crown princess to death by 1,000 cuts. She even wants to execute her entire clan. Does that mean that our clan will be executed as well? Even royal father and royal mother will be executed. Heh, what a majestic presence indeed. A cold voice came from outside the broken gate. The crown prince was dressed in a plain red coronet, and his gaze was as cold as a blade. There wasn't a trace of warmth in his gaze as he stared coldly at Consort Jing. Yoonhee had been muddle-headed from anger at the time, but now that she thought about it, disaster really came from careless talk. Her entire body quivered as she came to her senses. This concubine didn't mean that. Consort Jing couldn't swallow her anger at all as she glared coldly at Arbor with her venomous eyes. At this moment, Mammy Sue straightened her back and bowed. She braved the danger of being put to death by 1,000 cuts by the Crown Prince and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, the Crown Prince's late-night visit to Sephora Flower Palace is indeed improper. Just now, Her Highness made a slip of the tongue, so I hope Your Highness the Crown Prince won't take it to heart." The Crown Prince's icy gaze landed on Mammy Sue. "What do you think your noble consort's disgusting, powdered face is worth looking at? Our clan is here to pick up our crown princess. Wherever our crown princess is, our clan will be there. A tiny Sephora Flower Palace wants to block our path. Our clan can order people to smash your Sephora Flower Palace to pieces with just a few words. Someone, drag this old hag out and beat her to death." Two pitch-black figures immediately appeared beside the trembling Mammy Sue. The Crown Prince's cold voice said indifferently, seeing Yoonhee, "It's time for our servants and palace maids to be replaced. They've all been raised to the point where they can't tell who's the master and who's the servant. Drag her out. An eyesore. No, no. No. Your Highness, please forgive my reverend mother. She didn't mean it, she didn't mean to contradict Your Highness." Consort Jing immediately panicked. She rushed forward and hugged Mammy Sue's waist. This was an old nanny who had been by her side for so many years. Usually, she relied on this nanny to give her advice and ideas. She had followed her into the palace since Legay Courtyard, and followed her from a young Yoonhee to a meteoric rise to become Consort Jing's personal nanny. If Mammy Sue was killed by the Crown Prince, it was undeniable that Consort Jing's arm would be broken. It would be excruciatingly painful. The Crown Prince stepped forward and held Arbor's small hand. He coldly glanced at the two guards in black. "What? You can't even drag a weak old woman." "Yes." The hidden guard's entire body trembled, and he hastily exerted more strength, directly pushing aside the incessantly crying noble Consort Jing and throwing her to the side. He then dragged Nanny Sue, whose eyes were flickering continuously, outside. Suddenly, a powerful mystic energy exploded from Mammy Sue's body, and she abruptly pushed aside one of the guards. The Crown Prince's lips curled slightly. He raised his finger, and 5 streaks of fire shot towards Mammy Sue's face like crafty little snakes. "The Great King has arrived." The eunuchs and palace maids who had rolled into a pile outside the palace hurriedly cried out, Great King, hurry and save Her Highness the noble consort. Her Highness the noble consort is about to be beaten to death by the Crown Princess." Ah! How could Mammy Sue resist Emolien's fire spirit? She was hit head-on by a beam of fire. Her entire body flew up and fiercely crashed into the flower caltrop cabinet. Bang! After a loud sound, the flower caltrop cabinet exploded, and the falling pieces of wood buried Nanny Sue in a messy manner. "Nonsense, nonsense!" The Great King angrily berated, "Why aren't you stopping?" Chapter 618. Consort Jing, who was shouting Mammy Sue, suddenly turned around and threw herself at the old Great King with tears streaming down her face. Great king. This concubine doesn't know what wrong I've done to deserve such humiliation from the crown princess. She sobbed uncontrollably, and her palm-sized face was as delicate and alluring as raindrops on a banana leaf. Arbor expressionlessly stepped forward and kicked the trembling pure Huang in front of the great king. That kick was so nimble that the great king, Gong Chang'an, and the other imperial guardsmen couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Ah! Great king! Great king! Save me, great king! Pure Huang trembled all over as she scrambled to hug the old great king's leg. What the hell is going on? The great king watched his two concubines cry so miserably, and his old face almost couldn't hold it together. Huang Jiayu has already confessed. Arbor expressionlessly said with a stoic face, "It was Yung He who sent a dozen people to kidnap my mother and younger sister outside Dongshan Gate. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. I naturally have to find the mastermind behind the scenes to settle things. As the saying goes, if there's a grudge, then there's a grudge, and there's a grudge. I presume that the great king is reasonable and won't stop me from taking revenge for kidnapping my mother and sister." The great king glared at Consort Jing. Consort Jing promptly knelt down and sobbed softly, "Great king, how could this concubine do such a thing? This concubine simply doesn't know what the crown princess is talking about. Why would this concubine kidnap her mother and younger sister? What grudge or enmity does this concubine have with the Marquis of Jiayuan that this concubine must do such a thing after the small banquet? So you're saying that you won't admit it?" Qiao Mu coldly curled her lips as she swept her gaze towards the uncontrollably trembling pure Huang. "I didn't do anything. Even if you are the high and mighty crown princess, you can't force this concubine to admit to something I didn't do." Noble Consort Jing insisted that she hadn't done it before, so she couldn't help but sneer in her mind. "This little lass still wants to fight with me. This time, I'll let you know that it's useless to just open your mouth and bite. Can you produce any evidence?" "What a joke. What do you have to say?" The great king's face darkened as he glared at Huang Jiayu. Shivering, Huang Jiayu raised her head and saw Consort Jing shooting a piercing cold glare at her from the corner of her eye. Her whole body shivered and she immediately sobered up. She knew better than anyone what kind of person Consort Jing was. If she dared to bite her in front of the great king, even if she managed to survive today, she definitely wouldn't be able to survive tomorrow or the day after, and her entire family would definitely suffer. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but harden her heart. She rolled and crawled in front of the great king and slightly raised her face, revealing her most beautiful side to the great king. Huang Jiayu was sorrowful and delicate as she cried weakly, "Great king, this concubine has been wronged. This concubine also doesn't know why the crown princess brought a stranger to this concubine's classics reverence hall and insisted that this concubine admit that it was Her Highness the imperial consort who sent people to kidnap her mother and sister. Huang Jiayu, you better think carefully before you speak," the crown prince coldly said, his gaze as if he was looking at a corpse. Huang Jiayu's body involuntarily trembled more and more violently. She sobbed loudly as she crawled in front of the great king and cried, "Great king, this concubine really didn't do anything. This concubine can swear to the heavens that if I sent people to kidnap Her Highness the Crown Princess mother and sister, let this concubine be burned by heavenly fire and die a horrible death." Arbor coldly glanced at this woman. "I originally had no enmity with you, but today you just had to reach out to my family. I will definitely not let this matter rest." Chapter 619. How could I not hold back against you bunch of demons and monsters? Could it be that you two really think that I don't have evidence? That I'll let you casually accuse me in front of the great king? As soon as Arbor's cold voice fell, pure Jade Huang couldn't help but tremble all over. She cast a panicked glance at Consort Jing, but was fiercely glared back at by the imperial consort. Calm down. Don't be caught by a few words from this little girl. Consort Zheng's sharp gaze swept over pure Jade Huang as she thought to herself, what kind of concrete evidence could a damned little girl have? I'm afraid that you've never known that there's something called a listening talisman in this world. Arbor turned over her finger, revealing a white jade tablet that was as thick as 3 fingers. I'll let you listen to what you said to me just now. Arbor's cold words left pure Jade Huang's body, as if someone had sucked all the strength out of her body, and she suddenly collapsed to the ground. What kind of person was this crown prince consort? How could she be so meticulous? Why didn't she leave her any way out? This listening talisman wasn't drawn by Arbor. With her current talisman power, it was impossible for her to draw talisman characters on the jade tablet. Of course, even if she learned how to make a listening talisman, with her pragmatic nature, she probably wouldn't draw such a useless talisman. This very rare jade talisman was coincidentally found in a shop in Anshan Town when she and her parents escaped from the village and headed for Anshan Town. She had always thrown it in a corner of Paradise Planet, occasionally taking it out to study it until the 4th piece of the Golden Talisman Jade Tome was opened. She vaguely knew that this jade tablet was likely a jade talisman sealed with a special talisman power. The talisman master who drew this jade talisman had very profound talisman power. She used her own talisman power to open the talisman and spent a lot of effort. Afterwards, she studied it many times and found that this should be a very rare listening talisman. There was also a passage recorded in the jade talisman. Of course, after she memorized it, she naturally erased it. This listening talisman could now be used by her. This kind of jade talisman was usually sold to wealthy people. Legend has it that there was a prince who loved the voice of a prostitute. He bought 10 jade talismans for listening to music and asked the prostitute to play the zither and sing. Each jade talisman was engraved with the woman's voice. Thus, every day, the prince would excitedly hide in a secluded place and quietly listen to the music of the female singers, intoxicated by it day and night. In the end, when his valiant wife found out about this, she immediately ordered hundreds of servants to smash the brothel into smithereens. She even dragged the singer out of the brothel and beat her up on the street. From then on, her face was disfigured to the point that even her parents couldn't recognize her. Other than that, the jade talisman had no other practical uses. But in reality, it could still come in handy occasionally, such as now. Arbor's finger lightly brushed over the jade talisman, and the level 12 mystic cultivator's pained voice was heard. It was the classics Reverence Chambers Virtuous Huang, the old nanny beside her, who contacted me. She wanted me to control Madame Chiao and second Miss First, then think of a way to transfer them out of the capital and find a place to sell them. Mo Lian's eyes were overflowing with anger, and she kicked Virtuous Huang. Do you have anything else to say? Soon, Virtuous Huang's trembling voice was heard again. It was Her Highness the Noble Consort's orders. I'm just a small virtuous jade, so I don't dare to disobey. Chapter 620. In this palace, I'm afraid that only you, Young-hee, are worthy of the title of noble consort. Arbor's cold gaze shifted to Consort Jing, causing her to shiver for no reason. Consort Jing couldn't help but be inwardly alarmed. This little girl had already dug a hole long ago and was waiting for them to jump in before lazily taking out the evidence in her hands. How could she be so scheming? Was this still a 14 or 15-year-old girl? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this kind of scheming person was someone who had decades of experience. Young-hee, what else do you have to say? Mo Lian angrily rebuked, then suddenly pulled out a slender, jet-black sword and pointed it at Consort Jing. You vicious woman! How did my mother-in-law and the others offend you? You're actually so vicious as to want to sell them off. Consort Zhang's pupils abruptly contracted and she hurriedly rolled to the Great King's feet. She hugged the Great King's leg and cried in a delicate voice, "Great King, ah! I really didn't know about this. How could you push this onto me just based on a few words from little sister Huang? Handsome Huang!" Consort Zhang cried to the heavens as she turned around and angrily shouted at handsome Huang, "How could you be so shameless? You're randomly pinning some unrelated matter onto this consort. Speak. Why did you do this?" Consort Zhang's beautiful eyes revealed a vicious glint as she looked at handsome Huang. Her thin lips moved slightly as she faintly spat out a person's name. Handsome Huang's shoulders immediately collapsed. She was like a doll that had been poked by someone as her entire body went limp and weak on the ground. That was her father's name. Consort Zhang was using her entire family's lives to threaten her. This woman's methods were extremely vicious. If she didn't continue acting as she said today, her entire family would definitely be slaughtered tomorrow. Handsome Huang finally felt a deep sense of regret at this moment. Why? Why was she so stupid? Why did she have to get involved in this mess between the Crown Princess and Consort Zhang? Wouldn't it have been better to learn from Jiayu Lu and live a peaceful life in the classics Reverend Hall? She had to learn from others at her age and still fight for favor. She even had the delusion that she could gain the favor of the Great King by relying on noble consort. Pathetic. Pathetic. Pathetic, ah! Handsome Huang clenched her teeth and hardened her heart as she looked at the old Great King, then suddenly stood up and slammed her head against a nearby pillar. I did all of this. It was me who was jealous of Her Highness the Crown Prince Consort. She was high and mighty and was doted on by the Crown Prince. It's me who wants to deal with the Crown Prince Consort and make her suffer. And because I have a grudge with the Imperial concubine, I decided to push the blame to the Imperial concubine. It's me. It's all me. It's of these things of pigs. I should atone for my sins with my death. I hope that the Great King will let me take responsibility for my own actions and not implicate my family. Boom. Handsome Huang hardened her heart and slammed her head against the pillar. She died immediately, so fast that no one could react. Arbor couldn't help but frown deeply. In the inner court of the Imperial Palace, there was really one thing after another. Consort Zhang hugged the Great King's leg and gently exhaled. She stole a glance at Arbor, her bright red lips slightly raised as she gave Arbor a provocative look. All of a sudden, Mo Lian abruptly moved, and the long sword in his hand slashed towards noble Consort Zhang's neck without any explanation. Consort Zhang was so scared that her face turned pale. She scrambled into the Great King's arms and said in a trembling voice, "Great King, Great King. His Highness the Crown Prince wants to kill his concubine mother." Chapter 621. Killing a wicked person like you who brings calamity to the country is to punish evil and punish evil. To uphold the righteous path. Mo Lian's sword was already at Consort Zhang's neck like a bolt of lightning. Consort Zhang shrieked and squeezed desperately into the Great King's arms. She felt a chill on the back of her head, and when she touched it with her hand, she realized that a strand of her hair had been severed by the sword chi. Consort Zhang nearly fainted as she hugged the Great King tightly and wailed, Great King, save me, Great King." The Great King hurriedly hugged his beloved consort and reached out to shake her frantically. He repeatedly shouted, "My king! My king, oh, my king!" Mo Lian's expression darkened as she coldly glared at her old father who was blocking her. "Move aside. Everyone, dot. Great Crown Prince, there's something wrong with your tone. My king." The Great King hurriedly pushed his beloved consort behind him and tried to smooth things over. "Put your sword away, put it away, put it away. Put it away and speak, my king. The great king shielded Consort Jing and retreated a few steps. Then, he felt that he was a little cowardly in front of his son and daughter-in-law, so he quickly puffed out his chest and rebuked angrily, "Ridiculous. Crown Prince, how can you draw your sword at your concubine mother for no reason? You're really too. In any case, put your sword away for us right now. Hurry." Seeing that Mo Lien was unmoved, the great king couldn't maintain his composure any longer and hurriedly ran forward. Mo Lien could only put away his sword with an indescribable expression when he saw this muddle-headed royal father of his who was charging straight into his sword. "My king. That's right, if there's anything, let's talk about it openly. We're all family, so there's nothing to hide." The great king heaved a sigh of relief and turned to look at the crown princess, whose expression was bone-chillingly cold and without a trace of warmth. Cough. The great king was at a loss for words as he looked at her expressionless face. With great difficulty, he organized his words and said in a low voice, "Crown Princess, you've seen it for yourself. Huang Jiayu has already admitted her guilt. She admitted that she sent people to kidnap your mother and sister and slandered the imperial concubine. This matter has nothing to do with my beloved concubine, so let's just drop it." Arbor coldly glanced at the great king and walked out without saying a word. The great king's heart skipped a beat. He felt that his daughter-in-law's condescending gaze just now was simply too stifling. Screech! The Qingyuan that pounced down from the sky made all the hairs on the imperial army's body stand on end. They entered a state of full alert. "Smash this filthy place for me!" Xiao Mu shouted angrily. Qingyuan suddenly spat out a mouthful of frost towards Consort Zhang's bedroom. Suddenly, like a hailstorm, all of it rushed down. The entire roof was smashed into a sieve by this terrifying gust of wind, snow, and frost. Rubble fell from the holes in the roof. The imperial army hastily protected the great king and the imperial concubine as they rushed out of the bedroom. The crown princess leaped onto Qingyuan's back and looked down on the common people. Her voice was unprecedentedly cold and frigid. "Yonghe. Today, I'll give the crown prince face and let you off. If you do it again in the future. I don't care if you're the heavenly emperor or the 6 prefectures and 3 prefectures, I want your entire family to die without a burial ground. Just like this palace." Boom! As her voice fell, Consort Jing was at a loss for what to do. Her eyes bulged as she looked behind her. She saw that the perfectly fine Sephora Flower Palace's main hall and bedroom had been completely pulverized in a matter of seconds and turned into rubble. The old great king clutched his chest in shock. Chapter 622. Lord Father, look after your concubine well. Don't make a single mistake. Mo Lien coldly threw down these words and leaped to the little fellow's side. She raised her hands to pull her into her embrace and patted her comfortingly. Qingyuan let out a long cry and then flapped its huge wings, carrying the crown prince and crown princess back to the eastern palace. Consort Jing only dared to let out a long sigh of relief when she saw that the two were far away. She delicately laid in the great king's embrace and cried, "Great king, ah! Look at that crown prince. Even his concubine is so arrogant and insufferably arrogant. He doesn't put chinchilla in his eyes at all. That's how that couple tortures me, their concubine mother, ah! Whoa, great king, you have to uphold justice for chinchilla, ah! Great king." The old great king's head hurt from her noise and a trace of anger appeared in his eyes. He fiercely shook off Yonghe's hand and flung her to the ground. "Don't think that this humble one doesn't know what you've done. This humble one was giving you face in front of the crown princess just now." The old great king angrily reprimanded that Huang Jiayu is clearly one of your people. You still won't admit it. Look at what kind of foolish thing you've done. Ah. Why did you go and capture the crown princess's mother and sister for no reason? Ah. You're just looking for trouble. If it wasn't for little 15's sake, this humble one wouldn't have bothered to save you just now. This humble one just doesn't want little 15 to lose her mother's care at such a young age. Great King. I'm innocent. Ah. Great King. Consort Jing cried until tears fell like pear blossoms, her delicate body trembling. She walked a few steps on her knees and knelt in front of the old Great King as she cried, Great King. No matter what, Chinchilla is still the crown prince and crown princess's concubine mother. How can they treat me like this? Disrespecting one's concubine mother is unfilial. The crown prince and the crown princess were the role models of the world, the people of the crown prince and crown princess. How could they disregard etiquette, justice, integrity, and honor and do this to their stepmother? Ah. Ah, Great King, Chinchilla's reputation has been completely swept to the ground by the crown princess's antics. How am I supposed to help Her Majesty manage the 6 palaces in the future? Then there's no need for you to help. The Great King waved his hand and shouted angrily. In an instant, Consort Zheng's voice was drowned out. She raised her teary eyes and stared blankly at the old Great King, as if she didn't understand what the old Great King meant. Men, draft the decree. Madame Zheng did not respect the crown prince and was spoiled and rude. Due to her immoral conduct, she will be demoted to Consort Zheng from today onwards. She was stripped of her right to manage the 6 palaces and temporarily handed it over to He Jiaoyi. I hope that Consort Jing will properly repent in the palace and not take half a step out of the palace without our orders for a month. After saying this, the old Great King turned around in a huff and was about to leave. Consort Jing almost fainted on the ground, but Mammy Su, who had hurried over, supported her body. Consort Jing wept to the heavens as she hugged the Great King's leg and repeatedly shouted, Great King, Great King. Please retract your orders, Great King. Chinchilla knows her wrongs, Great King. Great King. Although Chinchilla is in the wrong, is the crown princess not in the wrong? She flouted the palace rules and barged into Chinchilla's Sephora Flower Palace and smashed the bedchamber into pieces. How can this kind of crown princess shoulder the heavy burden of being the nation's future mother? Ah. Great King, Great King. The old Great King was so angry that he kicked Consort Jing away and said angrily, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself. You clearly knew that the husband and wife weren't to be trifled with, so why did you insist on arguing with them? It's great now. You've made a big fuss and become a laughingstock in court. You better properly stay in Sephora Flower Palace and reflect on yourself. Don't come out if you haven't realized your wrongs. Chapter 623. The Great King was so angry that he didn't even mention the 1-month deadline. It was as if he wanted to banish Consort Jing to the cold palace and keep her in Sephora Flower Palace to reflect on her actions. Mammy Su shuddered in fright when she heard the meaning behind the Great King's words. She hastily crawled forward to cover Consort Jing's mouth and dissuaded her in a low voice, Your Highness, don't say any more, Your Highness. Your Highness, quickly kowtow and express your gratitude. Consort Jing finally fainted. When the news reached the Queen's central palace, it was already past midnight. The Queen hastily got up to change her clothes and was about to visit the Crown Prince in the Eastern Palace, but she was stopped by the Mama by her side. Consort Jing has been demoted to Consort Jing, Your Highness. Her personal Mama, Hua Xian, pursed her lips and said with a smile. This Crown Princess is really something. Sigh, that child, Wang, I don't even know where he found such a wife. That stoic face really worries me to death. The Queen sighed. This child of mine has always been willful and unbridled in front of his father. This is great. He married a wife who's even more willful and unbridled than him. The days from now on are going to be lively. Her personal palace maid, Hexiang, giggled and consoled the queen. The crown prince and crown princess are both sentimental people. The great king must know this. The queen pointed at Hexiang and laughed along. Mama, look at this mouth of Hexiang's. She's clearly just being willful and unbridled, but in her mouth, it becomes a compliment. What sentimental person, ha ha ha. Sigh. Your Highness, the children and grandchildren will have their own fortune. This old servant feels that you shouldn't meddle in this matter tonight. The old mama said, the great king must still be in a fit of anger right now. This servant also heard that the great king summoned the second prince to the imperial study at 10:00 tonight. The old mama lowered her voice and whispered into Empress Zhao's ear. The queen nodded. This Consort Jing is really strange. Why was she so impatient to make a move on the crown princess's mother and sister at Dongshan Gate? This doesn't match her usual cautious demeanor. This servant heard that His Highness the Crown Prince even affectionately called the Crown Princess's mother. His Highness and the Crown Princess escorted them all the way out of the second gate, but for some reason, they were ambushed at Dongshan Gate. When the queen heard this, she immediately snorted. I don't usually see that child being so intimate with me. The maids covered their mouths and snickered. The king princess's mothers, Consort Jing shunt to sleep, Consort Sessest, SSS right. The SSSS the court officials who were well informed naturally received the news as well, and they clicked their tongues in amazement. From what they knew, Consort Jing had enjoyed unfailing favor for many years. Who would have thought that she would be so unlucky tonight when she met the crown princess? Even her. Shocked by the change in the court's direction, the officials all sent letters to their sons at home, earnestly warning them not to mention it. After Arbor returned to the Eastern Palace, although her face was expressionless, Mo Lien knew that she was still angry. Mo Lien raised his hand and called, "Supper. This servant is here. Didn't you say that Jung Heat summoned the Jing estate's second steward today? Go find out what's his cause." The crown prince ordered. Yes. This servant will go immediately. Darling, don't be angry. We'll secretly take revenge. Mo Lien hugged his little wife and stroked her hair. I'll write you a monthly ticket tomorrow. Chapter 624. I've already sent people to send mother and second sister back to the Chao estate. They also suffered a bit of a fright today, so let them rest well. We'll visit them tomorrow, Mo Lien said as he hugged his little wife. Jojo, blame me for being careless. I didn't send more people to escort them back. Arbor shook her head. How would you know that Jung He is so unscrupulous that she dared to lay a hand on my mother outside Dongshan Gate? With that, she looked up at the man. Mo Lien, I won't let her off so easily. Mo Lien hastily nodded and said, all right. Go ahead and do whatever you want. Since royal father is stopping us from touching her, it's the same as taking revenge in secret. I'll have Xiao Yi find out first, then we'll haggle over this further. Only then did Arbor feel a bit better. She nodded and said, this Her Highness Jing is truly too much of a bully. If she couldn't help but lay a hand on my mother and sister because of a quarrel between us, then she's too narrow-minded. She thinks that you're like those people in the palace, that she can do whatever she wants to you. That's good too. Give her a lesson she'll never forget. Mo Lien's lips curled into a sneer as he said, don't let her misunderstand that no one in this world can control her. Jojo, you must be tired from today's torment. Rest early. Oh, that's right, give me your broken ferrule and debeo. I'll see if I can repair it. It can be repaired. Arbor's eyes suddenly brightened. It should be possible. Mo Lien couldn't help but feel very happy when he saw a glimmer of light appear on her face. He raised his hand to pinch her little face and said, "I obtained a top-grade material earlier. I reckon that not only can it be repaired, it might even improve by leaps and bounds." "What leaps and bounds?" Darling Qiao was curious. But the Crown Prince didn't say anything and only reached out to tease her little face. "You'll know after I give it to you." "Okay." Xiao Mu was in high spirits as she handed the feral and big treasure to Mo Lien. "I'm not in a hurry either. Take your time." "I know." Mo Lien's gaze was deep and gentle. "Also, can you make me a wooden club? Usually, when I meet someone who doesn't have eyes, I'll hit him with a wooden club. That way, I won't have to use my feral all the time." Xiao Mu suddenly had an idea. The corner of Huifeng's mouth twitched slightly. "All right." Sure enough, the Crown Prince agreed without any moral integrity. "Do you want to add some thorns to the club?" "Yes, yes. Add some barbs. It'll definitely feel good to smash it." The little guy's ferocious eyes lit up again. They were as black as two boundless stars. What a strange scene. Huifeng stared at this pair of savage goods in disbelief. They were currently discussing in high spirits how to perfectly forge that club. The little girl was born ferocious, and His Highness had led the little girl astray without knowing it. Did His Highness' conscience not hurt? "Let's go." Mo Lien's voice brought our dear Huifeng back to his senses, and he hurriedly followed the Crown Prince out of the bedchamber. "Huifeng, what was that expression on your face earlier? You don't agree with this Crown Prince's actions?" The Crown Prince asked calmly. Huifeng really wanted to be like Hidden Flower and fawningly say to His Highness the Crown Prince, "Of course not. This subordinate thinks that everything your highness does is right." But he really wasn't that shameless, so he could only harumph, "And no, your highness." The Crown Prince nodded with his hands behind his back. "That's the best. If you do, I'll immediately send you away." Chapter 625. Huifeng inexplicably felt a chill on the back of his neck, and he turned to glance at the night. It must be because the night wind has gotten stronger." "Your Highness, are we still going back to the study?" Mo Lien turned to glance at the slightly dimmed light in the bedchamber and sighed at the night. "Tough life. Who knows when I'll be able to openly enter the room." "Your Highness." Huifeng was too embarrassed to ridicule His Highness when he saw how reluctant he was to part with her. "My lord, it's just one night of not seeing the little miss. You'll report in on time tomorrow morning. Do you have to make it look like a parting of life and death?" "Ah, poo. There's no parting of life and death. Let's go." Mo Lien listlessly stuffed her hands into her sleeves and pitifully turned to leave. Cold winds blew the entire way, and her back was bleak as she stumbled across a thick layer of snow. Huifeng couldn't help but twitch his mouth as he thought, "What am I acting for? The little miss isn't even here. You're acting so well, and the little miss can't see it at all, so she definitely won't keep you. How is the study inconvenient for you? With your cultivation, you can reach the study in 3 seconds if you fly normally. Yet you have to walk like a tortoise, so you have to stagger through the snow. The small bedroom in the study has already been filled with bathing water, filled with charcoal, and brewed with hot tea. What's missing from you?" Not long after Mo Lien left, a crack opened in the bedchamber's window, and darling Qiao's large eyes peered out from the crack. A trace of snow drifted into her eyes as the cold wind of the snowy night blew. So cold. She narrowed her eyes slightly and closed the window before hopping onto the bed and covering herself with the blankets again. However, she couldn't get the Crown Prince's pitiful back view out of her mind. If it's still snowing too late tomorrow, shouldn't she Chase him to the study to sleep. It shouldn't be a problem for him to stay the night, right? She wondered if the study was warm or not. This was his bedchamber to begin with, but she had taken over the magpie's nest the moment she came. Emisham. Tomorrow. Our dear Chiao Mu hugged the blankets and turned over, curling up and falling asleep in a daze. Early the next morning, Arbor was woken up by a series of squeaking noises. He opened his eyes and was momentarily at a loss. 3 thumb-sized black-winged butterflies fluttered towards her. They're back. Chiao Mu immediately opened her blankets and sat up, somewhat sober. Little master, little master. Xiao Zhao's crisp voice rang in her ears. The mansion you asked me to investigate has been bustling with activity these past 2 days. Hurry up and tell me, Arbor urged as he put on his clothes. That family has been making a ruckus since the night before yesterday, Xiao Zhao said briskly. First, a thief broke into the mansion and snuck into the study to steal something. He was caught red-handed. Last night, there was even more drama going on. A group of people came to the mansion, saying that they got the news and wanted to catch the big thieves. The one who stole from the study. Yes, that's him. But is it that easy to search the second prince's residence? Arbor was stunned. The residence that she had asked Butterfly to keep an eye on was the second prince's residence. That official who went to investigate was really arrogant. He said that the big thief stole something from the imperial concubine and came to investigate after getting wind of it. Without any explanation, he searched that person's residence from top to bottom. Xiao Zhao smiled happily. Butterfly said that they didn't find anything. That big thief actually disappeared in the end. What a joke. Chapter 626. Arbor's small hand paused in the middle of wiping her face. But she heard that the unlucky second prince had already been detained last night. Xiao Zhao chirped, in that whatever prince's study, they found a large stack of letters. Oh, they even caught someone. As they were speaking, Mo Lien walked in. Seeing that Arbor was already up, she couldn't help but walk over with smiling eyes. You're up so early. Why aren't you greeting anyone? It's not like I can't take care of myself, Arbor muttered and finished wiping her small face. Mo Lien pulled her over. I'll comb your hair. You know how to. No, I'll learn. Forget it. Don't mess around. Arbor hurriedly wanted to call Xiaoyao, but Mo Lien pulled her over to sit on a small round stool in front of the mirror. Jojo, it's snowing heavily outside today, and some roads are closed. Let's wait for the snow to stop before going back tomorrow or the day after. It's snowing heavily. The little fellow tilted her head and looked outside, but she couldn't see clearly through the heavy beads and brocade curtains. He turned her small head back and straightened it in front of the mirror, then he combed her hair twice in a decent manner. It's windy and snowing heavily, so let's not go out. Mo Lien casually combed her hair into a homey hairstyle. Looking at it in the mirror, it actually looked quite decent. How is it? The man couldn't help but feel a little smug. Arbor glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. What exactly did you do at the second prince's place yesterday? Is that notorious bandit the day before yesterday related to you? How could I be related to that notorious bandit? Mo Lien looked innocent and was even a little indignant when talking about this matter. That notorious bandit is quite famous on Seacombe Planet. He's called Thief Sage Ding Ting Ding or something. He can steal anything from his target. Arbor couldn't help but twitch her mouth. What Ding Ting Ding? I'm the one who's talking about that. Mo Lien simply reached out to hug her and rubbed her head with a grin. It's not Ding Ting Ding. It's Ding Ting Ding. He sat at the table, dipped his finger in the tea, and wrote 3 words. Oh, what did Ding Ting Ding do to make the crown prince so disdainful? Mo Lien giggled, hugging her little fellow as she laughed. This Ding Ting Ding almost ruined my plans. I sent someone to put something in second brother's study. Let's write letters. The little guy rolled his eyes. Ah. You already know. Mo Lien looked down at her. Who knew that Ding Ting Ding had been hiding in second brother's study all this time? Later on, he even deliberately got caught by second brother. Doesn't that mean he witnessed you finding someone to frame the second prince? Arbor's face suddenly turned serious. Mo Lien smiled. What do you mean by framing me? Those letters are real. It's just that he wasn't in the study before. Second brother has colluded with a descendant of the West Zhou Kingdom and hid him in the second prince's residence. Later on, Lord Gu found him and caught him red-handed. This can't be wrong. That Lord Gu, how did he happen to receive the news and rush to the second prince's residence? Arbor glanced askance at the crown prince. I just had someone leak the news that Ding Ting Ding was in the second prince's residence. Naturally, someone couldn't sit still and jumped out for me, the crown prince said with a smile. Xiao Yao came in with a row of junior royal maids to set the table. When she saw her two masters stuck together again, she couldn't help but cover her mouth in secret amusement. Ding Ting Ding really ran away. He's very good at running. The crown prince harumphed, his expression displeased. Chapter 628. It was as if a knife had slashed the corner of an ice sculpture's mouth, suddenly splitting it open. The cold laughter was so lifeless that it made people shudder uncontrollably. Mo Lien leaned in to listen, gently gazing at this little person as she listened. The two subordinates couldn't help but shudder again. They felt that the crown prince consort wouldn't be saying anything good right now, but just from the crown prince's expression, it was as though the crown prince was listening to the crown prince consort's warm and gentle voice as she spoke of her true feelings. It was a very strange scene. After saying that, the two of them looked at each other and continued to eat happily, not caring about the mood of their two subordinates who were looking at each other. Arbor wiped her small mouth. I'll go to the garden to use the summoning talisman in a bit. Ever since she summoned Weak Chicken, it was useless no matter how she tried. She couldn't summon any ferocious beasts. Thus, she suspected that the summoning talisman couldn't summon an unlimited number of beasts. Perhaps it was related to her own talisman energy. For example, after she summoned a strange permanent Qinghuan as a beginner talisman practitioner, she might have already reached the limit of her talisman practitioner level. Thus, if someone else used the summoning talisman she made and summoned a beast higher than her current intermediate talisman practitioner level, they might not have the chance to summon anything else. Even if she gave that person a bunch of summoning talismans, it would be useless. She used to naively dream of summoning a bunch of beasts and leading them to crush the enemy. Now, it looked like it was purely a dream. It's snowing heavily outside, little master, Xiao Yao couldn't help but say. It's fine, it'll only take a while. Arbor shook her head. Although it's snowing heavily outside, the scenery isn't bad. Let's go together after eating, Mo Lien said with a smile. The two ate breakfast around a small stove in the Eastern Palace's bedchamber. On the other side, Chao Zhongheng, Su Jiao, and Granny Nyo had already holed up in the rundown temple for more than 3 days. This was poles apart from Su Jiao's original plan of Chao Zhongbang begging and kneeling to invite elderly lady and their family back to the Marquis' estate in less than 3 days. It could even be said that Su Jiao couldn't understand why Chao Zhongbang was so heartless this time. Granny Nyo and her family huddled in front of the bonfire. Their tattered jackets couldn't block the wind at all. Other than them, there were a few other families living in the corners of the dilapidated temple. Those families had arrived early and had already occupied the advantageous positions in the dilapidated temple. What was left for Su Jiao and the others was near the dilapidated temple's entrance, and there was even a hole in the ceiling. The cold wind outside whistled, and there was even snow floating above their heads. It was so cold that the group of people were frozen into pitiable dogs. As soon as Su Jiao entered the rundown temple, she made her husband kick up a fuss, wanting to snatch a good place to squat. In the end, there were 2 body refinement disciples from 2 of the clans, and they worked together to beat up Chao Zhongheng. Instantly, the meddlesome couple cowered and didn't dare to say anything. Granny Nyo was flipping a small pot. The soup inside was very clear, with only 2 vegetable leaves floating in it. The porridge was as thin as water. Even so, the group of people around her were still swallowing their saliva and staring at her with stars in their eyes. "Didn't you say that your uncle would come to pick up that old woman in 2 days? Why was there no sound at all? Did you leak the news of this old woman being here to the Marquis Estates people or not?" Granny Nyo cast a sidelong glance at elderly Lady Chow, who was lying on the side, and grinned disdainfully. "How could I not?" Su Jiao was also so anxious that a string of bubbles formed at the corner of her mouth. Granny Nyo humphed. "Honestly speaking, if it weren't for her coveting the Marquis Estate's glory and wealth and wanting to establish a relationship with the Marquis Estate through Su Jiao, she wouldn't be willing to share her food with them." Chapter 629. The porridge with 2 vegetable leaves floating in the small pot began to boil. Pairs of eyes stared fixedly and impatiently. When Granny Nyo took the small pot down from the firewood rack, eldest brother Wei and his wife, as well as their son, had already impatiently rushed up to scoop the porridge. When it was Chao Zhongheng's family of 3's turn, there really was only a mouthful of soup left, and it was unknown whose stomach it could fill. The couple could only reluctantly let their precious son eat. "Mom, I'm about to starve to death." Chao Long drank a mouthful of soup and felt his stomach rumble. Rubbing his starving stomach, Chao Long recalled the various pastries that were placed on the table when he barged into the Marquis' estate. He regretted that he didn't rush up to grab a few pieces to fill his stomach before arguing with them. "Sigh, when your father finds a job as a guard, he'll have food to eat. He wouldn't be able to take it if he continued to starve." It looked like he could only fill his stomach with dirt first. Elderly Lady Chow lay on the ground covered with withered grass and groaned. Su Jiao shot her a glance and simply couldn't vent her anger. This damn old hag truly had a precious life. These past few days, she had been ordering her around all day, and she had to serve her food, drink, and poop. She was simply an old good-for-nothing. After all, elderly lady had enjoyed several years of peace and quiet, so how could she endure this kind of hardship? On the first night of arriving at the rundown temple, she started coughing because she caught a cold from the wind. Her illness didn't seem to improve these past 2 days, and she kept mumbling about returning to the Marquis' estate in a daze, which annoyed Su Jiao. While she was unconscious, Su Jiao still had to serve her poop, which disgusted Su Jiao to no end. However, if they left her alone and allowed her to poop on herself, the one who would stink would still be themselves. Su Jiao thought of a good idea. In any case, there wasn't enough food, so they wouldn't give her food or water. It wouldn't be so troublesome if she ate and drank less. As a result, elderly lady only drank 2 mouthfuls of thin soup these past few days, so she was already somewhat delirious from her illness. "Your mother-in-law won't die from her illness, right?" Granny Nyo was very disdainful of Wang Nei's behavior. If she didn't have a precious life, then she shouldn't pretend to be an old madam from a noble family. They came from a similar village. That day, when Granny Nyo saw Wang Shi wearing gold and silver and being raised to a healthy appearance, she felt sullen in her heart. However, after being exposed to the wind and rain for the past 3 days, Wang Shi had lost a lot of weight. She had also become much darker. She looked a bit like an old lady from the countryside. Su Jiao had sold off all the valuable items she had on her, including that leather jacket that could ward off the cold, in exchange for food. It was also because she didn't have a cotton-padded jacket to protect her from the cold that the old lady's precious body was blown away by the cold wind on the first day. How could that be? Auntie Nyo, don't worry. I'll find someone to go to the Marquis's estate and cry. Just say that the Marquis master's mother is about to die of starvation or illness in the ruined temple. Let's see what my uncle is going to do. He still dares to not come and take me back. So, Auntie Nyo, I'll have to trouble you to lend me some food. Old woman Nyo tightly clutched the bag of grain as she looked at Su Jiao with a guarded gaze. I gave you quite a bit 2 days ago. Everyone said that they were going out to invite someone to the Marquis's estate to cry to Qian, but there hasn't been any news until now. I think that your uncle is most likely a black-hearted person. If he wasn't black-hearted, how could he possibly drive his mother out of the estate? Your eldest branch wouldn't have come to take you back. Auntie Nyo, that's because I entrusted the wrong person before. This time, I guarantee that I'll entrust an honest person to go to my uncle's place and cry for an entire day. Granny Nyo was skeptical. She grabbed a small pinch of millet between her fingers and reluctantly placed it into Su Jiao's open pouch. Chapter 630. Su Jiao couldn't help but inwardly curse Granny Nyo for being stingy. She even feigned a bashful smile on her face as she took the small bag of rice and went out to take care of matters. There was a pile of snow outside, making the road difficult to walk on. Su Jiao picked from the side of the street for a long time before picking an old beggar who looked like he was about to die. She gave half of the pitiful amount of millet that Granny Nyo gave her to the old beggar. After giving him such instructions, she hid the remaining bit of millet in her pocket in case of an emergency. However, despite Su Jiao's extreme scheming, she didn't know that the old beggar couldn't even step onto Minshan Boulevard. Ever since Su Jiao's party caused a ruckus, Minshan Boulevard had been patrolled by royal guards. Idle beggars and refugees were chased away before they could even approach the various estates. Thus, while Su Jiao was dreaming of returning to the Marquis's estate to enjoy life, she didn't know that Qiao Zhongbang and company didn't know where they went at all. Arbor naturally wouldn't pay attention to Su Jiao's party anymore. To her, these people had already lost their meaning in her life, and she treated them as if they didn't exist. After finishing breakfast, the crown prince put on a thick cloak for her and held her small hand as they walked towards the garden together. After exiting the door, Arbor looked at the flying snow that filled the sky and finally felt a chill assaulting her. The crown prince's hand was warm and cozy, like a burning flame. Holding his hand was like holding a small stove, and she didn't feel cold at all. The duo slowly walked in the snow, leaving behind 2 rows of crooked footprints of different sizes, both deep and shallow. Arbor looked back, and her eyes brightened as her lips curled up. If this snow continues, it'll become a disaster. Xiao Yao held an umbrella for the duo as she followed behind them, stumbling along the way. There's no need to worry about that. 2 days ago, Sir He from the Ministry of Works already reported the disaster to His Highness the Crown Prince. All the major fortifications have already been alerted and ordered to repair the roads. Hui Feng couldn't help but interject. He Qijing is someone who can do things, the Crown Prince praised. The Crown Prince praised. Holding Qiao Mu's small hand, the 2 people arrived at a slightly spacious area in the garden. Baby, here it is. Summon. The Crown Prince took 2 steps back. Xiao Yao ran over to Arbor and held an umbrella for him. Her little face was filled with excitement. Miss, don't tell me you've recruited another weakling this time. Oh right, where's that weak chicken? Arbor's mouth twitched. Coo! The weak chicken that Xiao Yao was thinking about suddenly flapped its wings and flew onto Xiao Yao's shoulder. Xiao Yao reached out and held her up. She chuckled and said, "Miss, don't say that. I don't know if it's because I'm used to it, but I feel that this weak chicken is quite pleasing to the eye. Don't you think it's prettier than before?" Hui Feng rolled his eyes at skyward. "First, miss, that's because you didn't see how Weak Chicken smashed the Reverend Book Hall and froze Sephora Flower Palace. You won't say that if you see it. Miss, I hope you can summon a big beast this time." Arbor waved her hand at her, indicating for her to move further away. Right. She was someone who was going to summon a beast. Taking a deep breath, Arbor took out an intermediate-level blue summoning talisman inscribed with ebony. She mumbled to the blue summoning talisman for a while before a faint light suddenly appeared. Activate the talisman. A glowing blue light abruptly filled the air before their eyes. Everyone widened their eyes and held their breaths in anticipation. Xiao Yao even looked around curiously, anxiously looking at where a fierce beast would suddenly emerge from in the snow. Chapter 631. There was no reaction for a long time. There was nothing in front of her. Not to mention a ferocious beast, not even a tiny sparrow could be seen flying. The garden was still full of wintersweet blossoms and evergreen pines and cypresses, but because it was too cold, all the living creatures had shrunk back into their nests. Whoa! Another failure. Arbor threw the ebony talisman into the snow and stomped on it twice to vent her anger. Only then did she angrily run to the Crown Prince's side, allowing him to wrap his arms around her. "Hey, miss, the patterns on this talisman have lost their color." Xiao Yao ran up and picked up the ebony talisman from the snow, shaking it. When Miss first took out the talisman, the ebony was clearly engraved with strange blue patterns. But now, the blue patterns on this piece of wood were gone, leaving only a few faint grayish-brown rune patterns. That's right. This means that the talisman was activated successfully. But nothing was summoned. Just like before, nothing could be summoned. Arbor was furious. Her small hand tugged at the Crown Prince's long hair that hung in front of her eyes as she angrily pouted. Let's go back. The Crown Prince couldn't help but laugh. Holding her small hand, he turned around and walked towards the bedchamber. "Jojo, don't be anxious. Just because you can't summon it now doesn't mean you can't summon it in the future. You're still young. Summoning Blue Wan as an intermediate-level talisman master isn't in accordance with the rules in the first place." Arbor pursed her small mouth noncommittally. Caw. The weak chicken also shook its feathers, looking smug with its head held high and chest puffed out. "Forget it, you can't force anything." The little fellow listlessly drooped her head. "Jojo, I returned the batch of medical books last time and also brought you a few unique copies. Do you want to go back and take a look?" "Okay." Arbor's footsteps paused, and she looked up at him. "The old royal physician is willing to give you such precious unique medical books." Of course he wasn't willing to give them. But was there any use in not giving them? Humph. Cough. The Crown Prince coughed lightly with a clenched fist, and Hui Feng immediately said from the side, "Rest assured, Crown Princess, His Highness the Crown Prince neither snatched nor stole." Those were all brought over to have a look after discussing with the old imperial physician. Besides, the Crown Princess flipped through the books very quickly. She would send the books back to them in no time. The old imperial physicians were very reassured and fought to send it to the Crown Prince Consort. As if. That's good then. Xiao Mu nodded. Your father has so many concubines in the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. Those old grandpas are already so old. They usually have to treat the concubines in various palaces and courtyards. It's quite tiring. Don't bully them for no reason. The Crown Prince made a muffled sound and coughed twice. His face was serious, and it was impossible to tell that under his gentle appearance, there was a little devil's heart hidden. Sigh. Imperial Physician Chow is crying so much today that he couldn't let his darling know that he bullied an Imperial Physician. Emichim, he would send something over to Imperial Physician Chow tomorrow to express his condolences. Not long after the group left, the snowy ground where Arbor was originally standing suddenly moved, and a small snow bump appeared. Darling Chow spent the day very leisurely. She read books for half a day and occasionally stared blankly at the Crown Prince's serious expression as he read through the memorials. It wasn't until after dinner that the Crown Prince silently took the cloak handed to him by a royal maid and pitifully glanced at Chow Mu. I'm leaving, Chow Chow. After saying this, he shuffled away like a turtle, his back lonely and pitiful as he walked outside into the cold wind and snow. Our dear Chow Mu calmly looked at the sky full of snow outside and suddenly said, "Why don't you stay here and sleep? See you tomorrow, okay?" Chapter 632. Clang. The sound of Weifeng banging against the door abruptly rang out. Then, His Highness the Crown Prince kicked him out of the door, and he rolled into the snow without a sound. With his back to our dear Chow Mu, the Crown Prince's eyes suddenly lit up like twinkling stars. Stabilizing his facial expression, the Crown Prince turned his head to look at his Chow Chow. His phoenix eyes were slightly watery. Chow Chow, really? It's snowing too heavily outside. It won't be convenient for you to walk over. Arbor's face was solemn as she walked to the Crown Prince's side and held his hand. You sleep on your own bed, I'll sleep on the couch. No need, no need. You sleep on the bed, I'll sleep on the couch. Mo Lien hugged the little fellow and lowered her head to rub against her neck, beaming with joy as she revealed her porcelain white teeth. After the two of them washed up, they snuggled together and whispered to each other for a while. Arbor suddenly thought of something and asked, I heard that great bandit Ding Ting Ding stole something from Consort Cheng. Do you know what it is? The Crown Prince coughed awkwardly. I don't know. You definitely know. Seeing his expression, Arbor knew that he was hiding something, so she poked his waist. Hurry and tell me. You said before that you'll tell me everything you know, so you can't hide anything. What kind of hiding was this? The Crown Prince groaned inwardly. He just didn't want to mention Yung He's lousy incident. What is it? Seeing the Crown Prince's expression, the more secretive it was, the more curious darling Chow became, and she couldn't help but sound a bit coquettish. Mo Lien's heart was about to melt from this little fellow's cuteness, but her expression was a bit awkward. She hugged the little fellow and whispered into her ear, Ding Ting Ding stole Yung He's. Her voice trailed off, but darling Chow's eyes suddenly widened. She opened her mouth and yelled, What? He actually stole Yung He's belly. The Crown Prince hastily covered her yelling mouth, silencing the little rascal's pocket from her lips. The two of them looked at each other and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ding Ting Ding is too deceitful. No wonder Yung He views him as a mortal enemy and immediately went to the second prince's estate to capture him. You don't know. The Crown Prince was also a bit angry at the mention of Ding Ting Ding, who would enter every nook and cranny. This stinking bug likes to send invitations before stealing. Chow Mu widened her pair of watery eyes, looking as if she had not heard this. What? He even sent an invitation to courtesan Jing, saying that he was going to steal her belly. Chow Mu whispered into the Crown Prince's ear. Ting ding ting ding ting ding ting ding ting ding. Back then, his father had ordered the Imperial Army to guard the perimeter of Sephora Flower Palace, but even so, that person was still able to come and go as he pleased. I suspect that he either used some kind of special talisman or had some kind of amazing disguise technique, the Crown Prince said with a smile. From then on, Yoonghee hated this person to the core. He's quite interesting. Arbor nodded and expressed his opinion. Crown Prince Mo immediately turned vigilant. He cupped her small face and gazed at his darling. I'm telling you, this person is really ugly. With a green face and fangs, he didn't seem like a good person. You can't interact with him, you know. Good boy. Xiao Mu rolled her eyes at him. Why should I interact with him? I don't even know him. Chapter 634. Your Highness, the Crown Princess is still young. Don't bully her. Xiao Yao whispered. These words sounded like he was in a hurry. Crown Prince Mo felt like he was at a loss for words. Are you all blind? Can't you see that it was your Crown Princess who threw herself at me? All right, you can all leave. The Crown Prince took the little fellow's hand from Xiao Yao's and chased them out. Can't you see that his baby's eyes are still hazy? It's obvious that she still wants to sleep. A bunch of ignorant people chattering here. It'll be dawn soon. Jojo, did you have a nightmare? The Crown Prince held her little hand and carried her to the bed. Sleep a little more. It's all right, it's just a dream. Snake, there's a snake. Arbor hooked her arms around his neck and refused to let go. No matter what, she didn't want to sleep on the bed again. Snake. The Crown Prince hurried forward and checked the inside and outside of the bed. He didn't find anything. The Eastern Palace was cleaned every day. It was always dry and tidy. How could there be a snake? But the little fellow wouldn't speak without thinking. If she said there was a snake, she must have seen it with her own eyes. Don't worry. Mo Lien carried the little fellow back to the bed by the window. You sleep here first. I'll look around again. Arbor was really sleepy. She fell asleep as soon as her head touched the pillow. It was just that he was frightened halfway through, so he couldn't sleep well. It wasn't until a pair of warm hands brushed her face that Arbor fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, while half asleep, Arbor had a strange dream. In the dream, she saw the little snake slithering in the snow for a while. There was a bulging bag on its head. It looked back at her, its watery eyes full of grievances and pity. The word summon was faintly discernible under its slanted crown. Summon beast. Arbor woke up with a start. Arbor's small hand slammed onto a bulging package, and he was slightly startled. Looking down, wasn't it the floral cloth package that the little snake carried on its belly in his dream? The little guy quivered and his legs trembled as he kicked the bundle off the couch. The opening of the package loosened, and something fell out of the floral cloth package. Gold, silver, jade wares, jade inkstones, incense paper, pearls, emeralds, corals, agates, ambers, ivory, and all kinds of colorful gems. My God, this seemingly unremarkable flower cloth package actually had a hidden treasure inside. Half of the treasures in the palace's treasury had been moved here. Our dear Xiao Mu sat on top of a pile of jewelry that was getting taller and taller. She looked at the jadeite and jade jewelry that was still pouring out of her bag with a stupefied expression. She simply didn't know what to say. Miss. Xiao Yao excitedly walked in. Then, her eyes widened and she hurriedly turned around to close the door. This. Miss. Where did this come from? Why did it seem like there was no end to these gold, silver, and jewelry that were still piling up endlessly? Arbor was startled awake by Xiao Yao's shout. She hurriedly stood up from the pile of jewelry and hurriedly tidied it up. With great difficulty, she stuffed these things back into that ugly floral cloth package and cleaned up the room. The master and servant looked at each other in dismay, their faces full of confusion. "Miss, this is a Cosmos treasure pouch, right? Legend has it that only divine weapon masters can make this kind of treasure pouch. Where did Miss get it?" Arbor opened her mouth. Chapter 635. What could she say? Say that she dreamed of a white snake carrying this ugly package, but when she opened her eyes, it was right next to her. Wasn't this a fantasy? Who would believe this story? Even she herself didn't believe it. Xiao Yao. This can't be something from the Great King's private storehouse, right? Arbor asked in a hushed voice. Xiao Yao's mouth twitched. "Master, Xiao Yao also hasn't been to the Great King's private storehouse. But looking at these jewels and accessories, each one is precious and valuable. The value shouldn't be low. Then what do we do now?" Arbor turned to look at her. "Of course we put it away." Xiao Yao looked around furtively, then hurriedly stuffed the package into her arms. "It's fine, little master. Put it in your inner world. No one will know. Even if the Great King's private storehouse is stolen, no one will be able to search your inner world. Also, how do we know why this package is here? Maybe it's another scheme of that evil woman, Consort Zhang. If we take it out and get caught red-handed, then wouldn't we be unable to explain ourselves?" After Xiao Yao finished speaking, she pulled her little master and ran behind the heavy curtains. "Hurry and put it away, little master." Consort Zhang was the scapegoat again. Arbor thought about it and decided not to put it away. It was too eye-catching to leave such a big package outside. But if she put it away, her little body trembled from the depths of her heart when she thought of that white snake with a round and bald head. Thinking of that cold and soft touch from last night, her entire body felt uncomfortable. With a move of his profound sense, the Cosmos treasure pouch fell into his inner world. The pouch opened and flipped over. Like golden pearls and jade pearls falling into a jade basin, a large pile of items fell behind the original mountain of treasures, forming another high slope. Arbor used his mystic sense and moved a red coral as tall as a person into the room. Master and servant sighed in amazement as they circled the coral tree. After admiring it for a long time, they finally looked at each other. "Young master, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but I feel that even the Great King's private vault would not be able to find a more perfect red coral than this. Look at this crystal clear." Xiao Yao clicked her tongue in wonder. "This is the best red coral." Arbor looked at it a few more times with emotion, and then put it away. "Xiao Yao, after the small banquet that day, the queen gave me a lot of jewelry as compensation. There is a box of beaded flowers, and the style is very suitable for you young people. Why don't you share it with the palace maids?" After saying that, she pulled Xiao Yao to the dressing table, took out a brocade box, and handed it to Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao was speechless. The crown princess was clearly younger than them, but sometimes she spoke like an elder, making people feel very uncomfortable. Also, the crown princess is the only one who dares to say something like compensation. Many thanks to young miss for the reward. Xiao Yao did not expose her and only smiled as she accepted the gift. After helping Arbor wash up and eat, Xiao Yao pulled the palace maids to the courtyard to choose and distribute the beaded flowers. For the entire afternoon, the Eastern Palace was filled with cheerful laughter, as if it was the new year ahead of time. Arbor read the medical book for the entire afternoon. When she turned around, she told the crown prince to quickly return the book. At night, the snow finally stopped. The two of them chatted until late at night. They agreed to wait for the crown prince to finish dealing with state affairs tomorrow before returning home together. Arbor threw the ugly empty cloth bag to the side and went to sleep. At night, when she was half asleep, she heard some rustling sounds. She suddenly opened a pair of cold eyes. Chapter 636. She saw a candlestick in the corner of the sleeping chamber slightly swaying with a faint yellow halo. But Arbor's gaze fell on the ground. That Cosmos treasure pouch was gone. Xiao Mu vigilantly looked back and forth, but she didn't see any trace of that white snake. Only then did she close her eyes and listen for a while more. Only when she saw that there were no more strange sounds in the bedchamber did she drift off to sleep. Xiao Mu only lazily crawled out of bed when it was close to noon the next day. When her feet stepped off the bed, she kicked a round and bulging package. She was so shocked that she hurriedly retracted her legs. She lowered her head and saw that the extremely ugly floral package had returned. It can't be, right? Arbor stretched out her foot and kicked that package. That white snake couldn't have brought her something again in the middle of the night, right? She quickly got up, squatted down, opened the bag, and threw it. Waves of exotic fragrance wafted over. Looking carefully, one after another, exotic flowers and herbs rolled out of the package, their fragrance assailing her nostrils. Although the quantity was not as exaggerated as yesterday's pile of jewelry, the quality was eye-opening. These were all precious herbs. Arbor's interest was piqued. She squatted on the ground and flipped through this and that, clicking her tongue in wonder. When Xiao Yao came in, she saw her little master squatting in front of a pile of flowers and herbs. Her fingers were quickly flipping through them, and the corners of her mouth were actually holding a long-lost smile. "Miss, it's time to eat." Xiao Yao called out twice. Seeing that she did not respond, she could not help but curiously run over to take a look. "Miss, why is this Cosmos treasure pouch stuffed with so many herbs again? If I say that it's a gift from a white snake, you definitely won't believe me." The little fellow pursed her lips. This time, without any consideration, she directly let Little Tree keep all these herbs. There were also many medicinal seeds mixed in, and she instructed Little Tree to plant them all. Previously, she was still worried that there were not many medicinal ingredients in Paradise Planet that she could take out. Now, it was all good. She had a lot of medicinal ingredients. Just now, she saw that there were 2 or 3 herbs that could be refined into level 11 Mystic Breakthrough pills. She planned to refine a few to comfort herself. The only thing he lacked was a suitable medicinal cauldron. That day at the Elixir Appreciation Conference in front of the Wuruan Elixir store, he had been too busy to attend. It should have already ended by now. He had really missed the opportunity to find a good medicinal cauldron. She sighed as she arranged the flowers and plants. After having a simple meal, she wandered back and forth in the bedroom, asking Xiao Yao from time to time, "When will Mo Lian come back?" Xiao Yao covered her mouth and chuckled. "The Crown Prince should be back soon. His Highness agreed to return to the Marquis' estate with you, so naturally he won't go back on his word." Arbor nodded and asked someone to bring a pen and paper over. He spread out a piece of white paper and started writing on it. A quarter of an hour later, when Mo Lian walked into the bedchamber, he saw his little one holding a brush and standing in front of the table in deep thought, her eyes fixed on the paper on the table. He walked over to take a look and saw 3 lines of delicate handwriting written from right to left. "Jiang Shubi's shadow like a startled swan hen Changkong Hao can compare to falling moon." Mo Lian stooped down and moved his head closer to look at those 3 lines of characters. Suddenly, he picked up the brush and circled 3, 3, 3, a total of 9 characters on the paper. "Hen Jiang can long sparse forest shadow moon temple." Chapter 637. Prince Mo lowered his head and glanced at the little fellow. What was so amazing about this? In order to choose a suitable city to build fortifications of various sizes, Prince Mo knew all the remote corners of the entire country like the back of his hand. Arbor put down the pen, folded the paper neatly, and stuffed it into her pocket. Only then did she raise her head to look at him. Do you know what Startled Swan is? This Startled Swan is the key to opening a secret inheritance realm. And this Startled Swan should be at the place you mentioned just now. The 3 sentences she had written on the paper just now were the message the mysterious woman had left for her in the jade sound transmission talisman she had used talisman energy to open earlier. The message said, she was able to obtain this jade talisman because she was fated with it. As for whether she was fated with Startled Swan or even the secret inheritance realm, that was unknown. Startled Swan. Mo Lien murmured, could it be that Startled Swan dagger? You know. Arbor's eyes lit up, becoming more and more curious. About 10 years ago, a group of relatively powerful great spirit masters from Shantian Prefecture came down and pursued a woman with all their might. Mo Lien searched through some damaged ancient records in her mind. It said that the woman's cultivation was especially strong. I reckon that she might have already broken through to the Great Spirit Master realm. However, in our place, her cultivation would be unlimitedly suppressed to the profound realm. Then those people from Shantian Prefecture wouldn't be suppressed. Little Jojo pursed her lips, and for some reason, her heart was filled with a thick sense of anger. Now that she heard the words Shantian Prefecture, she had the urge to tear them apart with her own hands. They would. Mo Lien's voice paused slightly. However, according to the remnant records, a portion of the people from Shantian Prefecture should have used some kind of secret technique, causing their realms to only be suppressed to the beginning stages of the spirit realm, which is about the same as a 4th-level spirit master. Shantian Prefecture and that female senior had a huge battle in the Western Territories. According to many records, the reason why the Western Wilderness is so desolate, where not even a blade of grass can grow, is because that battle back then was extremely tragic. Tens of thousands of people besieged that female senior. Arbor's blood boiled when he heard this. Tens of thousands of people. That mysterious woman had single-handedly turned the situation around. How arrogant and conceited was that? Praise also appeared in Mo Lien's eyes. That senior is very formidable. She withstood the attacks of 10,000 people with her suppressed level 15 great mystic cultivation. It was said that the startling swan dagger had once soared into the sky and burrowed into the earth, setting a record of 3,000 kills. No spiritual tool or divine tool could compare to this record. Arbor felt as if she was listening to a fairy tale. Her face turned slightly red, and she couldn't help but open her mouth slightly. Mo Lien saw how cute she was and couldn't help but pinch her cheeks lightly. She smiled and said, in addition, Senior also has a super strong beast. It had a robust body and the strength to move mountains and rivers. It was shaped like a giant rat and had 13 giant tails, each of which had the ability to split a mountain peak. People call it the White Emperor Holy Beast. One woman and one beast fought alone, and in the end, they actually killed more than 9,000 people from Shantian Prefecture. Arbor let out a long exclamation. Senior escaped in the end, and after that, her whereabouts were unknown. Mo Lien reached out to pick up the little fellow. Alright, now that you've finished listening to the story, tell me about those 3 lines you wrote just now. It should have been left behind by that senior. Arbor told Mo Lien everything about the jade listening talisman. Mo Lien's eyes couldn't help but light up. But why would the startling swan dagger be kept in Shadow Moon Temple? Today's end. Chapter 638. Arbor shook her head. I don't know. I'm afraid that we will only know when we go. It just so happens that Balon's soil has grown a batch of edible things. I was just considering going to take a look. The Crown Prince smiled. When the snow melts, let's go together. Arbor thought of the flourishing fruits and vegetables growing on Paradise Planet, but after some consideration, she didn't say anything. Although Paradise Planet was large, the food there wasn't enough to provide for all of Northern Mo. It was right for the Crown Prince to place so much importance on the food that Balon had grown. After all, they had to tackle the root of the problem to solve the people's livelihood. However, if they transplanted the plants on Paradise Planet, she didn't know if there would be any special growth effects. She could give this a try. While Arbor was pondering, she felt a cool breeze hit her in the face. The Crown Prince had already wrapped a cloak around her and carried her out the door. The carriage stopped at the door, and the two felt warm and cozy as soon as they boarded it. A small stove had already been set up in the carriage, and 2 cups of hot tea were emitting white steam. Mo Lien reached out to remove the cloak for her, revealing her tender face. He smiled and rubbed his head against her forehead. Jojo, you can't come back with me when we go back today. You have to let me hug you for a while longer. They were just about to separate, but she was already thinking about it. What should she do? It seemed that she could only urge the Ministry of Rites to quickly put the wedding ceremony on the schedule and hurry up with the purchasing process. Arbor rolled her eyes at him. She didn't believe that this person would obediently stay in the Eastern Palace and not come to find her. This is for you. When Mo Lien stretched out his hand, he saw a short and small ruler that was flowing with an inky light lying quietly in his palm. Arbor's brows twitched, and she looked up at him. It could change the size of a weapon at will. This should be a spirit artifact. This spirit artifact doesn't need to be sealed anymore. It will automatically adjust to the range of power suitable for you according to your actual cultivation. It will be easier to use. Mo Lien hugged her and lowered his head to look at her with a smile. Do you like it? Arbor nodded heavily. He happily took the ruler and stroked it gently with his small hand. He could instantly feel the ruler's excitement. Her little Mo was back. It was no longer lifeless and broken. It had repaired Mo Lien. Arbor was so happy that he almost wanted to spin in circles, but his little hands and feet were trapped in someone's arms, and he couldn't move. Give it a try. Arbor nodded and channeled a trace of Xian energy into it. Immediately, an ink light flowed and it was full of vigor. The ruler turned into a normal ruler and was held in Arbor's hand. Mo Lien, thank. Before Arbor could finish his sentence, Mo Lien pressed a finger to his lips. What an idiot. You're not allowed to thank me. You're a spirit tool master. Arbor's eyes lit up as he looked at the man in front of him. Mo Lien tilted his head in slight distress. Perhaps. I'm just following the inheritance in my head. I'm actually not very clear about what level of weapon master I am. But currently, I can only forge a level 15 spirit artifact at most. But this ruler of yours, I used a kind of top-grade material that can grow. In the future, when your cultivation increases, you can forge it again. Arbor's eyes lit up. He tugged at his sleeve and asked, then what about Debeo? Mo Lien waved his hand and a small person jumped up in the air, happily pouncing towards Arbor. Little Master. Debeo missed you so much. Little Master, you're getting more and more beautiful. Chapter 640. Jojo. Duanyu bitterly gazed at Arbor, who was in Mo Lien's embrace. His peach blossom eyes rolled up and down as he battled with Mo Lien. Hurry and let go of Jojo, you shameless guy. Jerk. He was so miserable. Ever since they parted ways at the Qin estate, he hadn't seen his Jojo again. The most bizarre thing was that a few days ago, he actually heard rumors in the capital that the great king had betrothed the crown prince to the Chow family's eldest miss. What betrothal? He wouldn't acknowledge it. Did this great king's brain go haywire? For some reason, he blindly betrothed his Jojo to that wretched crown prince. If it weren't for the Duan clan's trivial matters pestering him these past few days, he would have long snuck into the palace and met with his Jojo. Whoa. Mo Lien vigilantly glanced at him. What did you come here for? Hurry and get out of the carriage. Jojo, the great king is fooling around and betrothing you to Prince Mo. If you don't like it, you can resist. Duan Yu incited from the side, causing Mo Lien's gaze to darken. It's not that I don't like it, Arbor honestly replied. Prince Mo's originally dark clouds instantly turned sunny. He looked down at his darling with a grin and then disdainfully glanced at Duan Yu. Did you hear that? Humph. Hurry and get out of the carriage. Don't keep saying strange things and inciting my wife. Hurry and scram. Duan Yu looked like he was struck by lightning. He sized up Arbor from head to toe and suddenly wanted to pounce on her again. Jojo, listen to me, you're still young. Don't fall for it. We're not in a hurry to get married. Hurry and come over, I'll take you away. Prince Mo directly struck out with his palm. Run my ass. Go and squat down where it's cool. With a flick of his sleeve, Duan Yu dodged Mo Lien's palm strike. The car window trembled, and the carved wooden window frame nearly cracked. What are you doing? Duan Yu glared angrily at Mo Lien. You want to fight, right? Mo Lien gave him a look that said, I'm afraid of you. Arbor suddenly reached out and patted Duan Yu's dog head as he exasperatedly said, You two should stop. How old are you already? You're even more noisy than Xiao Senior, Duan Yu. Mo Lien. Ha ha ha. Look at her Jojo's small hands. It was as if she was stroking a puppy and smoothing its fur. Duan Yu blinked and suddenly pulled Arbor's petite hand over. Mo Lien's handsome face darkened, but it was too late for her to snatch it back. Jojo, tell me. What did Mo Lien say to you? Why did you run into the palace when you were clearly at the Qin estate? That night, he even snuck into the Qin estate to find her, but it was all for naught. Arbor was an honest child, so he replied, I don't know either. I was in the Eastern Palace when I opened my eyes. Mo Lien carried me back. That scoundrel actually made the first move and gained the upper hand. Duan Yu gritted his teeth as he angrily glared at the crown prince. The crown prince raised his brows at him with an expression that said, Sorry, Jojo is my wife, so scram to the side. Jojo, do you know how the Qin estate is doing right now? Didn't pay attention. Arbor spoke the truth. She wasn't familiar with the Qin estate either. At most, she was closer to Xiang Yuanyuan. Logically speaking, the Qin estate should be sealed off after a level 4 zombie appeared. Xiang Yuanyuan had never come into contact with a level 4 zombie before, so she would naturally be released once the time was up and it was safe. She was merely a maidservant and wouldn't be an eyesore, so she would definitely be fine. As for eldest Qin and Omega Kotoku, she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. She wouldn't finish until 10:30 p.m., right? Chapter 641. I'm telling you, the Qin estate is miserable. They've been completely surrounded by Mo Lien's troops. Not even a fly can fly out. Duan Yu slandered Crown Prince Mo to his face, speaking ill of him with all his might. Mo Lien merely harumphed and raised a brow, ignoring him. However, Arbor said, logically speaking, that should be the case. A level 4 zombie appeared in their estate. Although it didn't injure anyone on the spot, who knows if it had come into contact with anyone else in the inner court before. It should be observed for 5 to 6 days and unsealed only after there are no issues, the little fellow said indifferently. Her heart had always been as hard as steel when it came to zombies, so she should treat them more heartlessly than anyone else. Duan Yu pursed his lips. It's already past the deadline, but Mo Lien doesn't have the slightest intention of letting them out. Ask him if you don't believe me. Arbor turned to look at Mo Lien, and the latter looked back innocently. I was just too busy and forgot about the Qin estate's matter. Don't worry, I just need to instruct them. As if he didn't want those two annoying young masters of the Qin estate to come out. Who knew if they would come looking for his darling? He forgot. Arbor then looked at Duan Yu with complete trust. The crown prince was busy with state affairs, so how could he have so much free time to pay attention to the Qin estate's trivial matters? If he forgot, then so be it. In any case, she didn't like the Qin estate very much. Duan Yu secretly twitched his mouth as he cursed Mo Lien's craftiness in his mind. What kind of tricks did this guy use to coax the little fellow? She even trusted him so much. It was simply infuriating to death. Jojo, you definitely don't know what the Great King's betrothal means. Since this path didn't work, Duan Yu quickly changed to another path and earnestly admonished Arbor, Jojo, you're young and naive, stupid. Some people are crafty and astute, and you're completely not their match. Every step he takes has his own profound meaning. First, it would silently appear by your side all the time. Then, it would slowly infiltrate your life and infiltrate your family. This was clearly despicable. Then, he would pull all your family members to his side and slowly lure you to his side step by step. This was Prince Mo's strategy of slowly infiltrating the empire. He was so stupid. With such a good plan, he should have made the first move to gain the upper hand. Why did the crown prince succeed? For example, this betrothal. Didn't you say that you don't even have any friends? Why did you suddenly agree to this betrothal? Duan Yu glanced at Arbor aggrievedly. Every time he said, let's be friends, she would yell, I don't have any friends. Then, Prince Mo would take advantage of this opportunity to sneak her into the enemy's camp. Into Jojo's heart. Darling Qiao nodded sincerely. Before Mo Lien could cover her mouth, she heard her reply crisply, that's right. Mo Lien also told me that since I said that we don't have any friends, then we won't be friends anymore. We might as well be husband and wife. Duan Yu looked at her in bewilderment. Was this okay? Mo Lien couldn't resist facepalming. Oh my, why was his darling speaking so honestly? Darling, the private words between us husband and wife can only be spoken between us in the future. You mustn't tell anyone else. Mo Lien quickly pulled the little fellow closer to her and glared at Duan Yu. Let go. Then, she asked Little Tree to bring her 2 big cabbages, some bean sprouts, a bunch of grapes, and 4 honey peaches from Paradise Planet. She threw them all to the old man. Is this okay? She was just sitting at home, and a nouveau riche came knocking on her door. The old man hugged a large pile of vegetables, fruits, and rice and almost cried out. He nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Today ended. Chapter 644. Miss, you have so many things that you can exchange for 30 sesame seed cakes. I'll make 30 for you. The old man was also an honest person, so he quickly beamed with joy when he saw this. Arbor shook his head. 20 will do. You can keep the rest and slowly eat them. The old man quickly thanked him profusely and used all his effort to make 20 hot sesame seed cakes. He carefully wrapped them in oil paper and handed them to the little girl. Many thanks. Arbor accepted them and directly stored them in his inner world. He nodded and turned to walk towards the carriage. As soon as she lifted the curtain, the corner of her mouth involuntarily twitched. She saw two men sitting across from each other, each holding a teacup. Their fingers were long and slender, and their eyes were slightly lowered. A picture of quiet and handsome men flowed before her eyes. The two of them were sipping tea, and the tea mist lingered before their eyes. It was quite beautiful, like jade, as if they had completely lost the appearance of having just fought a fierce battle. The little fellow sighed and climbed into the carriage, resigned to her fate, and sat in the innermost seat. Not fighting anymore. We were just comparing notes, Mo Lien replied dryly. Emichim, when you disappeared for more than 2 years, we also frequently compared notes. Arbor, all right, the world of boys was truly quite difficult to understand. Jojo, tonight is the last day of Wuruan Pill House's auction, and they will continue to auction that rare 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. How about we also go take a look? Duan Yut suggested with a smile. No need to trouble yourself. I'll just buy the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron for Jojo. Mo Lien harumphed. Duan Yut glanced at him and gloated, you're uncultured. Ha! Do you think you can buy something like that so easily? The seller said that if you want the cauldron, you can only exchange it with a level 11 mystic breakthrough pill and a blood stasis dispersing pill. Moreover, the person wants a high-grade pill, so it must naturally have purple veins, understand? Arbor didn't notice Duan Yu's smug tone and asked in astonishment, logically speaking, Wuruan Pill House's auction should have ended 2 days ago, right? It's precisely because of the appearance of this 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. Duan Yu clicked his tongue in wonder. The 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron attracted the attention of all the pill alchemists in the nearby towns. The alchemists really wanted to obtain this medicinal cauldron. It was just a pity that the other party had set specific conditions for the exchange. It is said that this matter has alarmed the Alchemy Alliance, and it has been delayed for 2 or 3 days to wait for the Alliance Master of the Alchemy Alliance to come and bid for the medicinal cauldron. Arbor blinked. Is the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron really that good? Even the Alchemy Guild is here. Of course. It is said that it is the treasured cauldron that all alchemists dream of. You only need a level 11 mystic breaking pill and a blood stasis dispersing pill with purple veins in exchange for that cauldron. Arbor's eyes sparkled as he asked. Yes, that's what the seller of the medicinal cauldron said. This matter has already spread through the streets and alleys, Duan Yu said with a grin. How is it? Shall we go and take a look tonight? Arbor nodded. I'll go and exchange with him. Duan Yu exclaimed with a chuckle, Jojo's current pill refining standards are so superb. It's all right. Arbor nodded. It shouldn't be a problem to concoct pills with purple veins. However, she was a bit impatient because she didn't have a suitable medicinal cauldron, and it took a long time to concoct. Can we make it in time? Tonight is the last day, Duan Yu casually asked as he leisurely took a sip from his teacup. We can make it in time, right? We should be able to finish it in a little over 2 hours. It's just that it takes too long, so it's a bit annoying. The little fellow looked bored, and as a result, Duan Yu nearly choked to death on his tea. Chapter 645. You only need more than 2 hours to concoct a level 11 mystic breakthrough pill. Why did he keep hearing people excitedly talk about how some master spent 3 days and 2 nights painstakingly concocting a level 10 or level 11 mystic breakthrough pill, only to have it snatched up at a high price in a matter of minutes when it was put up for auction? Arbor rolled her eyes at him. It takes more than 2 hours to concoct a level 11 mystic breakthrough pill. Do you want to tire me to death? What I'm saying is that it might take more than 2 hours to concoct a mystic breakthrough pill and a blood stasis dispersing pill together. Mo Lien twitched her mouth and looked askance at Duan Yu's gaping mouth in shock. She couldn't help but laugh inwardly. You haven't seen the world yet. Do you think other people can compare to my wife's pill concoction talent? Mo Lien harumphed and rebuked Duan Yu. Duan Yu speechlessly rubbed his nose and looked out the window. The carriage had already stopped. Xiao Zhongbang and his wife, who had heard the news, quickly came out to greet them. Just as they were about to salute, Mo Lien waved her hand and went up to support them, pulling them into the house. Sister. Xiao Lin bounced out. Judging from her rosy cheeks, it was evident that the night raid 2 days ago didn't cause her much trouble. Arbor pursed her lips and reached out to hold her sister's small hand. As the group walked inside, Wei Ziqin cheerfully said, Xiao Yu, you haven't come in a long time. Yes, Auntie. I'll come every 2 or 3 days in the future. Don't find me annoying. How could I, child? Wei Ziqin shook her head with a smile. You're Jojo's good friend. Auntie doesn't mind you coming to eat every day. Arbor glanced askance at Duan Yu and harumphed. This time, she didn't rebuke a certain person in front of her mother by saying, no friends. Sister. A vigorous youth's voice cut in. Arbor looked up and saw a burly young man with thick brows and big eyes running down the corridor. He ran straight to her and looked at her with a hearty laugh. Brother who? Arbor's eyebrows curved slightly as he ran forward to greet his brother. Little sister, big brother really regrets what happened last time. Of all times to go into seclusion, I just had to go into seclusion when you came back. Xiao Hu scratched his head and said. What's there to regret? Didn't I come back? Yes, yes, yes. Xiao Hu smiled honestly. You won't be leaving this time, right? Arbor nodded. She's living at home. Great. Jolin cheered and pulled Arbor's hand. Sister, did you buy me a sesame seed cake? Wei Ziqin turned her head and glared at him. You're only thinking about that little bit of food. It's as if you're missing out on something. Uncle Wang's sesame seed cakes are crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. They're delicious. Xiao Lin pouted and looked at her sister eagerly. Arbor reached out and flicked her forehead. Then, with a swipe of his hand, he took out a stack of sesame seed cakes from his inner world. Take this and stuff your mouth. Jolin cheered and took it, grinning from ear to ear. A few sesame seed cakes were enough to make her happy. Arbor helplessly shook her head and followed the group of people chatting and laughing into the hall. After chatting for a while, Arbor was still thinking about the pills, so she planned to return to her room first. When Wei Ziqin heard this, she quickly wanted to take her daughter with her, leaving Xiao Zhongbang and second Uncle Qiao to take care of Mo Lien and Duan Yu. Jolin quickly followed them and chattered the entire way about the attack that night. As they chatted, the topic shifted to Miss Wu. Arbor frowned. Lin, you said that Miss Wu originally wanted you guys to send her off. Chapter 646. That's right, it's that Wu Xiaosu, the eldest daughter of the Wu family. Mother's heart was about to soften, but I saw that she was faking it, so I didn't let her come up. Otherwise, if something happened to her in our carriage, the Wu family might come after us to settle accounts. Xiao Lin, proudly raised her little head. Wei Ziqin couldn't help but laugh. She turned around and poked her daughter's head. You're the only one who likes to pretend to be obedient in front of your eldest sister. You're making mother sound worthless. Xiao Lin stuck out her tongue with a playful and adorable expression. Arbor looked at her little sister's lively and cheerful appearance, and her heart was filled with emotion. A faint smile appeared on her lips as she nodded. Shaolin is quite quick-witted. Alright, you don't have to praise her anymore. If you keep praising your little sister, her tail will fly to the sky. Wei Ziqin shook her head with a smile. She held her daughter's hand, feeling full of happiness. The three of them entered Nanju Garden. The emerald green bamboo that greeted them caused Arbor's expression to become slightly dazed. At this time, the snow hadn't completely melted, and the emerald green and white blended together to form a scene. It reminded her of a benevolent old lady who always liked to wave her large cattail leaf fan and set up a small table in the bamboo forest to listen to the wind and the bamboo while admiring the snow. She couldn't go back. Jojo, what's wrong? Wei Ziqin looked at her child in confusion. Arbor blinked and gently shook her head. It's nothing, mother. I like it here a lot. It's good that you like it, it's good that you like it. Wei Ziqin nodded happily. Go in and take a look. Mother has already prepared for you to come home to live. The mattress and everything else is new. See if you need anything, then tell mother. Mother, you always give elder sister the best. Compared to this, I don't even look like your biological daughter. Xiaolin pouted and teased. Wei Ziqin's hand paused, then she raised it to pat her younger daughter's back. What nonsense are you talking about? Your mother doesn't worry enough about you. Hee hee. Jolin covered her mouth and laughed. She flashed behind her sister and pulled Arbor's sleeve. Sister, when you weren't home, mother would hit me for no reason and always said that I was a naughty monkey. Now that you're back, you have to uphold justice for me. We sisters must be of one mind. Wei Ziqin couldn't help but sneer. Let me tell you, your sister is the most principled. Don't expect her to stand on your side if you do something wrong. Xiaolin pursed her lips as the three of them walked into the exquisitely decorated room. Using a double-sided peony embroidered screen to separate the room, the outside was arranged into a small cubicle for drinking tea and entertaining close friends, while the inside was a spacious bedroom. Xiaomu was satisfied with everything she needed after sweeping her eyes over it, so she didn't need to add anything else. She was originally a person who did not have high requirements. As long as it was comfortable, it was fine. As for the furnishings and whatnot, it did not matter. Now that father had been promoted to a marquis, mother had started to be particular. Otherwise, if it was in the village in the past, a big Kong bed was enough as long as it was warm enough to lie down. Sister, you're really not a particular person. Shaolin saw her sister's gaze, which seemed to be indifferent to worldly things, and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Go away, you have no sense of seniority. How can you casually make fun of your sister? Wei Ziqin patted her younger daughter. Arbor couldn't help but shake her head. Protecting her younger sister, she said, Mother is fine. We're in our own home, so we can be casual. That's right. Xiaolin tilted her head and naturally shrank behind Arbor. I'll add more chapters today. Go home first. Don't hide. Throw your tickets over, ow. Chapter 648. It was still because she didn't have a medicinal cauldron, so the little fellow could only make a porcelain jar on the small stove to make her pills. If those people from the Pill Alliance saw this scene, they would definitely slap her to the wall, making her unable to be pulled down. You freaking made a small jar for stewing tonics, and your sister stewed it there, and you actually made a purple-veined pill. Why don't you go to heaven? That was why it was more convenient for her to use a small jar to stew medicinal powders, ointments, and the like. It was also fine to make medicinal liquids, but refining pills was a little out of place. Who asked her to be so poor that she didn't even have a decent medicinal cauldron? However, Her alchemy and medical skills were all made up by herself. Before eldest Chin told her about medicinal cauldrons, she didn't even think that there was such a thing as a medicinal cauldron. Perhaps that master of hers, who was rather capable in the medical field, also did it like this. Otherwise, why didn't she have any information about medicinal cauldrons in her mind? How would she know that her capable master basically didn't need to worry about refining pills in the later stages? He just needed to throw the medicinal ingredients in, and he didn't even need to control the heat, and it would form pills on its own. Unlike her, who still had to bitterly watch the heat. So it took so long, and she could only refine 2 types of pills in a little over 2 hours. It really made her depressed. With this kind of refining speed, she didn't even have the face to tell others that she was an alchemist. That patient was about to die, and she still needed to refine pills for an hour. That person would have kicked the bucket long ago. Sigh. A certain darling supported her chin with one hand as she squatted beside the small stove. From time to time, she would use mystic energy to adjust the heat and gently brush the lid of the porcelain jar. She had to think of a good idea to speed up. She still had to refine pills for Dad and the rest. This way, she wouldn't be able to finish even if the sky turned dark. When Mo Lien stealthily sneaked in, he saw his wife's small, bitter face as she fretted over a small pot of stew. He was simply a little stunned. His phoenix eyes suddenly widened. This is... You won't tell me. You use this small stove and small white porcelain jar to stew your purple-veined pills. What do you think? Darling Chiao was already feeling a little hopeless from waiting. Therefore, after she learned how to concoct medicine, to be honest, she hadn't really concocted many pills. It was simply too slow, so slow that she wanted to sleep. You? Crown Prince Mo was simply at a loss for words as he looked at his eccentric wifey. How many times have you succeeded in refining pills? Mo Lien couldn't believe it. A certain baby rolled her eyes and gave him a look that said, nonsense. Student Mo felt that the bronze cauldron he used was already broken enough. It was simply a waste of his great talent in refining weapons. However, using such a broken cauldron, he could still make something like a level 15 spirit weapon. If this were to spread out, it would really shock the world. However, this time, he felt that those people who thought that he was enough to shock the world were definitely ignorant and inexperienced. They had not seen the weirdness of his little wife. This was the oddball girl of the entire alchemy world. Jojo, where are the pills you refined? Here. Arbor's little mouth twitched as he showed him the few jade-white pills in the lid of the teacup. This time, Prince Mo couldn't help but slightly open his mouth. There were 4 small round pills in the lid of the teacup. Based on his experience, he had never seen anyone who could refine so many pills in one afternoon. You actually refined 4 pills in one afternoon. What kind of pills are these? It smelled so good. Chapter 650. The other pill alchemists were truly strange creatures. She was purely discussing the grinding time of medicinal herbs, stewing, pill refinement methods with them to promote mutual communication. She couldn't even do that. Looking at the Crown Prince's deeply worried gaze, why did she feel like the other pill alchemists would beat her up? That was impossible. Everyone was fastidious, so they had to do some upper-class fastidious things. What are these last 4 pills? The Crown Prince glanced at them. Aside from the faint purple veins on them, everything else felt about the same. Even the color was pure white, and the size and roundness were all carved from the same mold. They're just 4 body-tempering pills for my second uncle. Arbor skillfully slapped the small lid and took the 4 body-tempering pills into his hand. He carefully examined and sniffed them before nodding his small head in satisfaction. Mo Lien, I refined them quite well. Do you want to take a few to eat? Qinghuan said they taste very good. Mo Lien, what the hell did he mean by taste very good? Could it be that in his darling's eyes, he was such a foodie? Arbor stuffed him with a body-tempering pill and 2 level 11 mystic breakthrough pills. These body-tempering pills are good for the body, so you should eat them. You don't have much use for mystic breakthrough pills, so give them to your subordinates. Jojo. Mo Lien pulled his small hand, touched. You're so good to me. Arbor turned to glance at him and nodded seriously. It's only right that I treat you well. You're also very good to me. Mo Lien almost laughed out loud. Look, his Jojo was such an honest darling. Mo Lien reached out to cup her small chin with a grin. Just as he was about to plant a kiss on her lips, he heard hurried footsteps outside the door, and Duan Yu's killjoy voice drifted inside. Ciao ciao. Time to eat. Mo Lien picked up that scalding pot of stew and threw it in Duan Yu's direction. Arbor immediately jumped up and shouted, Hey, catch. Don't break my medicine jar. Duan Yu originally wanted to kick it away, but when he heard Jojo's words, he quickly hugged the medicine jar to his chest and looked over in bewilderment. What is this thing? You two brothers, don't ruin it. If you want to fight, do it outside. I only have 1 pot that I can use to refine pills. If I break it, I'll have to find another pot. As she spoke, our dear Xiao Mu took back her jar from Duan Yu's hands with a treasured expression and ran to wash it. Duan Yu looked in bafflement at Mo Lien, who was walking over with her hands behind her back. What kind of mystic weapon is that jar? Look at how nervous Jojo is. Mo Lien rolled his eyes at him. It's just an ordinary pot of medicinal stew that I bought from a street stall. What profound artifact? Don't be ridiculous. Duan Yu. She's using this to make pills. No way. Mo Lien pointed his chin in that direction. Duan Yu looked in the direction he was pointing and saw a small stove. Duan Yu gaped. Tools for refining pills. Arbor ran over after washing the jar. When she saw Duan Yu still standing at the door in a daze, she thought for a moment before taking out a body-tempering pill from her pocket and tossing it to him. This is for you. She gave the remaining 2 body-tempering pills to second uncle. Let's go eat. Arbor put away her set of tools for refining pills, and was led out the door by Mo Lien. She even looked back curiously at the dazed Duan Yu. What's wrong with him? Nothing, he's just a bit frightened by you. Duan Yu. Arbor called out. Duan Yu hastily followed her out the door. Chapter 651. Duan Yu looked at Arbor incredulously the entire way. Jojo, I must obtain the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron for you tonight no matter what. His Jojo actually used a set of goods from a street stall to refine pills. This was too much of an insult to her skills. Emichim, I've already prepared the pills that person wanted. The earlier we finish eating, the earlier we can leave and the earlier we can return. Hopefully, that person was a straightforward person. Arbor wasn't willing to waste his breath on others. Our dear Qiao Sen was brought back from the academy by a servant, but he still cowered and evaded his eldest sister when he saw her. The family ate a joyous and harmonious meal. Arbor took out the finished pills and gave them to father, second uncle, and Qiao Lin. The 3 of them were overjoyed, and they practically couldn't take their eyes off the pills in their hands. After we finish eating, we plan on going to Wuruan Pill House to see what exactly that medicinal cauldron that has been talked about looks like. Xiao Mu said, I'll be back later. Just send someone to leave the door open. Wei Ziqin nodded and instructed, don't be too late. Meanwhile, Xiao Lin and Xiao Xin gazed at their sister eagerly, looking like they wanted to go with her. However, due to their mother's fierce expression, they didn't dare to speak. Mom. Children, don't go jumping around so late at night. Your eldest sister is a pill alchemist. Wei Ziqin spat out these two words especially gloriously, her face practically glowing. Eldest sister is going to the pill house to handle serious business. You two should behave yourselves and stay at home. Don't disturb your sister. Xiao Lin and Xiao Xin looked at each other and drooped their small heads. Mom, it's fine. It's almost the new year, so the streets should be quite lively. Anyway, it's early after eating, so I'll bring them out for a stroll. They won't be back too late. Xiao Lin and Xiao Xin quickly raised their heads again, their round and bright eyes brimming with hope as they looked at Wei Ziqin. Wei Ziqin didn't know whether to laugh or cry at their antics, and she glanced at them irritably. Don't cause trouble for your eldest sister when you go out. I know. Mother, I'm very obedient. The two siblings hurriedly agreed. When they were eating, they also put in a lot of effort. Their hearts were about to fly out of their homes. After hurriedly finishing their meal, Arbor and the two children boarded the Crown Prince's carriage and headed towards Wu Rundan. Xiao Yao didn't follow them. She politely bowed to Wei Ziqin, Qiao Zhongbang, and then went back to Nanju Garden to pack her things. This child, Xiao Yao, is getting better and better. Wei Ziqin sighed with emotion. She turned her head and saw her nephew, Qiao Hu, staring blankly in the direction of the other party's departure. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. Silly boy, you haven't seen Xiao Yao for a long time. Why don't you talk to her more? Isn't that so? Look at how silly he is. Why aren't you going? Second Uncle Qiao reached out and slapped his son's head. Qiao Hu jumped up and left in a hurry. The carriage rolled along Minshan Avenue for a while at a moderate speed. Before they reached Wu Rundan House, they saw that the road was already congested. Moreover, the snowy road was difficult to travel on, so two carriages actually crashed into each other and were stuck in the middle of the road. The servants of the two families accused each other and argued loudly. Arbor lifted the curtain and peeked out to take a look. The road ahead is blocked. Let's get off the carriage and squeeze in. The transaction hasn't started yet. Let's go to the third floor of that restaurant. When the time comes, we can just shout. Mo Lien couldn't bear to let his little fellow squeeze in with a bunch of stinky men, so he pulled her little hand and pointed forward. Time to sleep. Chapter 652. Arbor raised her small head. This three-story restaurant wasn't large, but it happened to be right next to the pill house, so it was already packed with people. How could there still be seats like this? This restaurant is actually still operating normally. What were they scheming? Arbor was a bit curious. Those who sold sesame seed cakes would sell sesame seed cakes because they wanted to barter with others for other daily necessities. But a restaurant was different. A restaurant would definitely have a rich variety of dishes and ample wine. Of course. Mo Lien smiled at her and held her small hand as they walked towards the restaurant. There are 5 inns and restaurants in the entire capital that are operating normally. Of course, their prices are a bit higher. They don't buy gold, silver, pearls, and jade, but all kinds of forging materials, medicinal herbs, and at the very least, mid and high-grade magnetite. Mo Lien leaned close to her and whispered, "This is a profitable business with little capital. That piece of supreme-grade blood-forged gold was bought from here." Darling Qiao's eyes suddenly bulged as she looked at the Crown Prince like he was an unscrupulous merchant. She lowered her voice and asked, "This restaurant is yours?" Mo Lien nodded rather smugly. How is it? Hubby runs a good business, right? When Duanyu heard this, he gave a disdainful harumph. Using your power to bully others and plunder the people's wealth. Mo Lien cast him a sidelong glance and spat at him. What did a brat know? The night pavilion's intelligence-gathering work had to be carried out in restaurants and tea-houses. All 5 inns and restaurants in the capital are yours. That's not it, there are only 3. As long as it's called Morning Cloud Restaurant, it's ours. Mo Lien led the little fellow inside. The innkeeper recognized the crown prince's identity at a glance, but he didn't dare to make a fuss. He only quickly welcomed them and respectfully escorted them to a private room on the 3rd floor. He arranged for a waiter to eagerly pour tea for them and then went to prepare the dishes. Mo Lien waved her hand and said, "Don't be busy. We just finished our meal and came over. Just some tea, pastries, and snacks will do." The innkeeper quickly agreed respectfully and quickly led people out to prepare. Is business good here? This place is a little more remote, so the business isn't as good as the other 2 restaurants. However, due to the special circumstances of the past few days, the restaurant's business has improved a lot because of the pill house's auction. No wonder His Highness the Crown Prince is in such a hurry to cultivate a batch of edible vegetables. I reckon that if he continues to operate like this, his private stockpile of grain will be depleted. Duanyu harumphed. The 2 children didn't interrupt, but when they saw that the tea and snacks were served, they happily ate them. Arbor tilted his head and thought for a moment. If it's just vegetables, fish, prawns, and fruits for the 3 restaurants, I can think of a way. But there are fewer meat birds. Her Paradise Planet's vegetables and fruits, especially the peaches, were almost unable to store them all. However, he could take out some to supply them. There were plenty of fish and prawns in the lake, so Chiochio only needed to catch some casually. Even now, Paradise Planet was still not very willing to accept living creatures from the outside world. Therefore, it was very rare to put living animals from the outside world inside. Naturally, the poison-tailed butterflies that they had painstakingly reared and couldn't be treated as food. Those were her little companions. According to Chocho, she reckoned that she would only be able to take care of some small animals and bring them into Paradise Planet after her cultivation reached level 13 Mystic Cultivator or above. At that time, Chocho wouldn't drag things out so tiresomely. Arbor propped up his chin with one hand and looked back. He saw 2 youths looking at him, waiting for him to continue. Chapter 653. Unfortunately, she couldn't invite them into Paradise Planet to take a look, and Darling Chiao was too lazy to explain so much. So she looked at them and directly took out 2 peaches from Paradise Planet. Try it. It's a bit tastier than before. I can supply this kind of peach for a long time in the restaurant. But it can only be exchanged with medicinal herbs. Mo Lien was long accustomed to the little fellow taking out peaches from time to time. Duanyu, on the other hand, was taken aback as he stared blankly at her. This peach, is it the peach from the paradise we went to back then? Duanyu clicked his tongue in wonder. When he took a bite, he felt that the moisture was extremely good and the texture was excellent. It practically melted in his mouth and even converged into a warm current that merged into his mystic meridians. This was a rare and excellent product. There was a mellow mystic energy hidden inside the peach. Although there wasn't much, it was very rich. Just a few drops merged into the mystic meridians and it could cause a ripple in one's mystic energy. If he could feel it eating with his cultivation, it would definitely imperceptibly increase the concentration of mystic energy in his body if he took it for a long time. However, when he took a bite, he glanced over and saw the 2 children staring at him eagerly as if their saliva was about to fall out. What should he do when he suddenly felt like he was bullying children? Sister. The two children turned their heads at the same time and looked at their sister eagerly. Arbor couldn't help but find it amusing, and she reached out to take out 2 ebony blue storage talismans. Here, I won't forget your share. She had already prepared them for her 2 younger siblings. There were over 1,000 peaches inside, as well as many other fruits and snacks, enough for them to eat for a long time. Don't be greedy and eat too much until you can't eat. Arbor instructed, drip a drop of blood to open the talismans. Try it. The 2 children cheered and put down the pastries in their hands. They bounced over and took the ebony talismans from her hands before going to play around by themselves. What Arbor lacked the most right now were all kinds of talismans. After staying on Paradise Planet for more than 2 years, she would draw talismans to kill time when she had nothing to do. There were at least 1,000 assistive offensive talismans drawn from ebony. In addition, she had drawn more than 500 ebony blue storage talismans, so she didn't have to worry about her storage space at all. He didn't draw many summoning talismans, only about 40 of them. Now that he thought about the summoning talisman, he felt very depressed. Every time he summoned something, it was not very reliable. This time, he actually summoned a snake. He really did not like it. In addition, she also used ordinary blank talismans to draw many talisman formations in case of emergency. As a result, there were only 4,400 blank talismans in stock and 6,400 blank ebony in stock. Mo Lien, I want some more ebony. When Arbor thought of this, he said excitedly, I've learned a new glyph array. However, drawing this glyph array on ordinary blank glyph paper might not be as effective as drawing it on ebony. 120 pieces of ebony will be used to draw this talisman formation, so it's better to prepare more. Alright. Mo Lien naturally agreed without hesitation. Ask Bailey Shi to get more. Ebony was not a rare item in the south, so Bailey Shi only needed to give an order to get it. Duanyu asked curiously, what new glyph array did you learn? Our dear Duanyu, who knew nothing about talisman drawing, felt that talisman practitioners were very mystical. Arbor was a bit smug. Have you heard of it? Transfer glyph array. Chapter 654. After saying that, Duanyu's mouth gaped open with a "you're so awesome" expression. The little fellow was quite pleased with herself. Right now, she was liking that golden talisman jade tome that inexplicably appeared in her conscious more and more. The talisman carving described in this golden talisman jade tome was truly too wondrous. It gave her a very novel feeling every time, intoxicating her with it. She wished for nothing more than to diligently learn more. Transportation talisman matrices are truly amazing. Mo Lien nodded and said, I've never heard of anyone from that talisman patrician family drawing transportation talisman matrices. What about this transportation talisman matrix? How far can it transport? Emichim, based on my current talisman energy as an intermediate level talisman practitioner. The transportation distance I can draw is estimated to be within 5 kilometers. The number of people transported cannot exceed 5. The number of people transported cannot exceed 3 times in a row. The little fellow puffed up her cheeks. The number of people really is a bit low. However, this is only my estimation. I haven't really drawn it before, so I'll only know the actual situation after I draw it. When the 2 youths heard this, they both wanted to roll their eyes. Not bad, baby. After 3 consecutive teleportations, the 5 of them were already 15 kilometers away. Even if someone wanted to hunt you down, they would have to use an extremely fast flying mystic weapon or a very strong flying beast. Otherwise, they could only watch you guys die. Alright, I'll urge you on the ebony matter, Mo Lien said with a grin. Then what grade of medicinal herb do you want to exchange the peaches for? Arbor was at a loss when she asked this. She knew the quality of medicinal herbs, but she wasn't clear about their grades. That longevity flower was an intermediate-level medicinal herb, and it was that miss from the pill union who kindly told her. "Can you give me a book on medicinal herb grades to look at?" What Mo Lien took from the royal physician before were all unique medical manuals that didn't touch on the basic classification of medicinal herbs at all. Mo Lien and Duan Yu couldn't help twitching their mouths. Who would have thought that a fellow alchemist who could casually stew a batch of purple-veined high-grade pills with a small stew pot bought from a street stall actually wasn't clear about the basic classification of medicinal herbs? This little fellow only had experience and high-level knowledge, but her basic theories were very shallow. "I don't need to read a book for this. The quality of medicinal herbs is similar to the classification of our forging materials. Generally, they were divided into low, medium, and high grades. Above that were yellow grade, black grade, earth grade, and heaven grade materials. The blood-forged gold I told you about before is a top-grade material that can be used to forge a level 15 spirit tool. That's why it's technically called an earth-grade forging material." Mo Lien explained to his little wife, "Generally speaking, we can call any material above the earth grade a top-grade material." Xiao Mu came to a realization. "As for this peach of yours, if consumed over a long period of time, it can strengthen one's physique and also increase one's cultivation and profound energy. The profound energy contained within the peach is extremely dense and is not bad at all. I suggest that you at least exchange it with medicinal herbs of profound grade and above, so that you won't suffer a loss." Arbor nodded repeatedly. "Then I'll leave it to you. Save me the trouble." Mo Lien naturally agreed with a smile. Arbor then gave her an ebony talisman that contained more than 1,000 peaches. When she turned around to look, she saw that guy, Duan Yu, looking at her eagerly. Thinking about how Duan Yu had helped her a lot, she couldn't favor one over the other, so she also tossed him an ebony blue storage talisman that contained a lot of peaches. She also gave him 2 empty storage talismans to store things. After a round of distribution, people were already shouting at the entrance of the pill house downstairs. Chapter 655. Mo Lien, I have a lot of vegetables and grain. If the restaurant doesn't have enough to sell, you can look for me, Arbor said to Mo Lien. Paradise Planet's vegetable fields had already reached a certain scale. Now that Chocho was bored out of his mind, he started thinking about planting food. Presumably, it wouldn't be long before Chocho built 2 more granaries to store things. Fortunately, Paradise Planet's surface area was very large. It was comparable to 5 or 6 times Shizhou City's surface area, so it could do whatever it wanted. If there was an abundance of food production then, they might not be able to satisfy other needs, but they might at least be able to supply food to the capital first. Mo Lien smiled faintly and said, "There aren't that many people in this restaurant usually. After all, the price is right there. How many people would be so extravagant as to spend so many magnetite just for a good meal? My stockpile of grain is enough for the time being. It'll be fine for at least a year or 2. Did you forget that when we raided Qinghe Town, I also took a lot of grain?" Arbor nodded. It was fine as long as there was no problem. Mo Lien, I have a batch of winter fruits in my stockpile. I can take them out. When the time comes, send someone to distribute them to the people in the shanty town on Shiluo Street. There were many incidents of smashing and looting on Shiluo Street. It was all because refugees from the outer city had gathered there. In the end, it was all because of the lack of food. Mo Lien was slightly taken aback. She shook her head and said, "There's no need for you to open up your personal stockpile. I'll take care of this kind of livelihood problem." He definitely had to leave his wife's money for his wife. How could he use her personal stash? Arbor was silent for half a second. "The stockpile is almost full. You can just take it and distribute it." It's useless even if I store so much. Her stockpile of peaches was about to burst. Who the hell would still store winter fruits? After returning from the small banquet that day, our dear Chiao Mu had the sapling plant 50 winter fruit trees. Because this winter fruit could be planted even in a world of ice and snow, there were no suitable conditions for planting it. Planting it in a paradise was simply a waste of talent. In addition, Chocho had specially cultivated the little tree and used some unknown method to accelerate its growth. In less than 2 days, Chocho had actually harvested several batches of the 50 winter fruit trees. The fruits piled up to the height of a small hill on the ground. It was really annoying to look at. It's delicious. I'm not lying. Why don't you try it? Since she took it out to give to the victims, it was naturally something good. She would not cheat those poor civilians. The two men, Cough, cough, cough. Duan drank a mouthful of tea to calm his nerves before grabbing a winter fruit in passing. Jojo, it's fine if you say that in front of us, but you mustn't say that to other people. Why? You'll be beaten to death. Everyone else is rushing about for food, but you're worrying that the storehouse can't hold the food anymore. How can you endure this? Arbor nodded honestly and asked casually, is it delicious? He saw his sister-in-law's 2 little heads nodding furiously. So bad, so bad. Sister. Give me some more. This winter fruit tasted completely different from other stores' winter fruits. It was sweet and refreshing, and the flesh was so crispy that one almost had to swallow their tongue. Arbor speechlessly glanced at the 2 foodies. Even something as ordinary as winter fruit was delicious. Helpless, he took out a lot more and had the 2 gluttonous little fellows store it in their storage talismans. Duan Yu lamented with a smile, the taste is indeed not bad. Compared to ordinary winter fruits, it's sweet but not greasy, and the flesh is very crispy. Chapter 656. That's good. I'll put these winter fruits into talismans for you later. Take them to Shiluo Street's Shed District and distribute them, Arbor said to Mo Lien. Mo Lien's heart naturally softened. She only felt that her wifey was incredibly considerate. Who said that his wifey was fierce? Look at how soft and gentle her heart was. Of course, this matter still needed to be discussed with the Ministry of Revenue. Merely providing financial assistance wouldn't solve the fundamental problem. The main thing was to make the young and strong work and distribute according to their work so that they would get what they worked for. Mo Lien temporarily suppressed these chaotic state affairs and pointed outside the window. That person is the owner of the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. Chiao Mu hastily raised her small head to look down the window. They were all sitting by the window, and Xiao Xin even eagerly climbed onto the soft brocade on the windowsill. He propped up his chin and looked down. There's no cauldron, sister. Since that cauldron is unusual, it should be able to change in size, Arbor casually muttered. However, Duan Yu scoffed. Don't be in such a hurry. Look, it can still change in size. It'll be out soon. Sure enough, it wasn't long before 3 to 5 burly men walked out, heaving a gigantic 3-legged copper cauldron that was more than 2 meters tall. Arbor, the cauldron's body was inscribed with a very imposing 9-star design, with a crescent moon hanging high in the middle. It looked quite authentic. But it was so big. It looked like a fake. Mo Lien's mouth also twitched. Are you sure this is the legendary 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron? It couldn't be a knockoff, right? This person went to great lengths to take it out to sell every day. With so many witnesses, could it be that he still dares to take out a fake? Duan Yu asked with wide eyes. Arbor pursed her lips. She felt that this cauldron was far from the exquisite and beautiful appearance she had in mind. This cauldron wasn't even as small and portable as her stew pot. Moreover, no one has subdued this cauldron before. If I can take it for my own use, who knows, I might be able to change its size at will. Duan Yu harumphed. Mo Lien held her teacup and nodded. That makes sense. Get out of the way, get out of the way. A series of noises came from the entrance of the pill house. 2 rows of guards escorted the 3 of them over. Arbor recognized the person walking in the middle. It was the old-fashioned girl from the Alchemy Guild that he had met in front of the elixir house. He looked to be in his early 20s and had a tall and slender figure. However, his face had always been taut and was rather stern and old-fashioned. The 2 people next to him seemed to be over 40 years old. They should be important figures in the Alchemy Guild. Master Hong, this way please. The old-fashioned girl stretched out her hand and led a middle-aged man in his 40s to the red copper cauldron. Beside the red copper cauldron stood an old man. His back was slightly hunched, and his eyes were slightly sluggish as he looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man, Master Hong, glanced at the old man before his gaze landed on the red copper cauldron. He carefully sized it up and even touched it a few times. He then sneered, "What kind of material is this cauldron made of? You actually dare to carelessly pass it off as some 9 stars mirroring the moon." The old man's eyes instantly widened, and he rolled his eyes. If this cauldron isn't the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron, this old man will be struck by lightning. I will die without a burial place. Master Hong's face darkened. You think I will believe you just because you say that? This old man isn't asking you to buy it. If you don't believe me, please leave. Master Hong harumphed. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.